Okay, we'll kick things off here. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the special council meeting for Thursday, December 7th at 6:30 to order. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge with respect that we're meeting on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Kasepsin and Songhees nations. We thank them for sharing these lands in peace and friendship. Okay, we'll move on. Approval of the agenda. May I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda? Okay. Councillor Olson, Councillor Grove, and any opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. We'll move into public participation. Item 3. Can ask any member from the public if they wish to come up and speak. Well, I see one person from the public here. Anyone on? Okay, we'll move on. Item 4, just before we start here, the only councillor absent tonight is Councillor Ward. He's away. So all the rest of the councillors are here because we don't have a pan camera here, so they don't know who's here. So delegations, we're going to start off with West Shore Parks and Recreation Society. And I can ask Grant Brown to come up. He's the Chief Administration Officer for West Shore Parks and Recreation Society. Grant.
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak towards the West Shore Parks and Rec 2024 budget. Just as many of you probably haven't met her, just letting you know in the background, we've got Wei Wu as our manager of finance and administration, just in case there's any big skill testing questions that I need some help with. On today's presentation, I'm going to cover some program highlights and statistics from this year. You'll overwhelmingly see the growth we've been experiencing, and those of you who use our rec center certainly have witnessed that yourselves. How that falls into our financial projections for this year and what leading with those with the major variances. Some 2024 budget considerations we had to work through. How that led into the major expense increases for next year. Our update to our 5-year plan to take us through 2028. Summary of the capital projects for next year. Still pleased to show our staying in the black in our 5-year reserve continuity, the requisition impact to each municipality, as well as future considerations. So I'll start off with some statistics related to this year. In 2023, we've held just over 1,000 swimming lessons to 5,400 swimmers this year, as compared to last year. We had 776 lessons to 3,400 swimmers. A lot of that is our staff with the creativity and the demand that's been out there have added swimming lessons to different days and times throughout the week that weren't done in previous, as well as to help staff that. We've had there's certainly still been a struggle as far as finding aquatic staff, but we've come through that quite strong as compared to the region and actually through the province. And a lot of that is due to our staff have developed and continue to offer in-house advanced aquatics lessons program, so that we're training our own people to become guards and instructors. And so we're building them from within. I just left right now, actually. We're just hiring the latest crop out of the last set of lessons. And so we haven't had to falter as far as not having enough staff to run the lessons. Skating lessons this year, an increase in demand. We offered basically the same number of classes as last year, although there was just over 100 more skaters took part. Seen a large increase in the demand for all aspects of our site as far as facilities go. Just shy of 200 more hours of field hours booked this year, over 300 more ice hours, and over 100 more pool hours this year for some of the rental groups. The most significant increase we've seen is in admissions. So if you're a pool user, and as far as the fun swims go or the weight room, you'll see that we've been averaging quite high in both of those areas. At oftentimes for the swimming lessons, which has fun swims, which have a capacity of 220 swimmers based on the guard ratio, where there's often people unfortunately having to wait in the lobby for people to exit to be able to get back in. And we've seen a 32,000 increase in number of drop-in admissions to the fitness center versus last year, a 8,000 increase in pool admissions, and a 1,000 increase in skating admissions this year. One of the other big highlights is our youth nights, which currently are averaging 96 youth drop-ins per visit. And we just recently added to the Friday visit us Wednesday session that includes a skate. So on Fridays, they've got swimming, as well as then they go into the indoor sports field and the youth room. And now on Wednesdays, they have skating as well as the youth room that they can go into. And that's a $2 admission for 12 to 17-year-olds. The majority are 12 to 15, but that's been quite successful. Rounds of golf continue to grow, as this year is turning out to be the 9th greatest number of rounds played since we started taking stats in 1999. That's been a trend we've seen through COVID, as golf, of course, was one of the activities that fit within the restrictions, and we've seen that demand continue. And down at the bottom, we've more than doubled our annual pass sales this year versus previous years. So some of that is attributed to people switching from more term passes, as far as punch passes of 10 or 25 or a 3-month pass to more commitment to an annual pass. And out of that, that's resulted in 40,000 more pass scans this year versus last year. So, and the majority of annual pass holders are weight room users. And as mentioned, we're averaging often 85 people per hour through the weight room this year compared to previously. So in the summer, we replaced all of our cardio equipment, which was delayed due to the lack of use during the restrictions. So we replaced all of it this year. And as a result, we also changed the configuration of where the equipment was to keep trying to handle the more people. And then we just went through another little change recently as well, just as demand continues to be really high. So all of that comes together with a projected unused expenditure this year of $445,487. That's due to revenue being up 12% over budget and expenditures being up 3%, which is 8% better than budget this year is what we're expecting. Broken down into the major variances for that, we see a $100,000 improvement in aquatics. That is mostly from admissions, as mentioned. We're seeing upwards of 13,000 more admissions per month in total value between drop-ins and passes. Facility bookings is up over 100,000 this year. As mentioned, increased demand for all of our spaces. Parks and maintenance has had vacant positions, which tends to happen just due to the transfer of staff and the high demand they are. So there is a lot of poaching going on within the region for ticketed refrigeration technicians. So we're based on open positions this year, about $100,000 savings. If you recall, when I was here last year, doing much better. Last year's was upwards of 300,000. So we've done a lot. There's a few stints this year where we haven't had open positions for the first time, and since I've been there for the last 8 years, where we have actually had everything filled. And currently we have a full auxiliary crew as well, which is helping out with that. Golf, as mentioned, has made a major contributor. Childcare, daycare has continued to be full with a lengthy wait list. And the after-school care is currently at 95% full. Both of those we don't budget that high due to ratios, and so we take with the consideration with daycare, we budget to have 2 open spots for a few months of the year, and after-school care we budget 85% full. The reason for that is they have ratios due to licensing, and if we've got a drop in people, it doesn't necessarily mean that our costs are down. So we don't want to. It's fairly risky to try to budget it that high, but the demand has been there so far. Improved admissions in fitness and wellness, and then finance, of course, drops it as credit card fees and higher insurance costs continue to be an issue. The credit card fees are just as a relation to the increased business increases the credit card fees that are resulting. So moving into 2024, the major considerations that we worked through is our collective agreement expires this year. We had done our negotiations outside the region, and so we had negotiated the year prior to everybody else, and before inflation went crazy. So we are currently 4% behind the region on average with our wages, and with the set increase of 3% for the rest of the region coming in January, without an increase, we'll actually be 7% behind the region. So we are currently in negotiations right now, and this is there, but we had to consider that, of course, when developing the 2024 budget. An increase in insurance premiums continues to be out there as the number one contributor to that. Is we're finding that not as many vendors are bidding on us. The same issue that led to the development of the Municipal Insurance Authority, which we're unable to participate in, is also meaning that there's less market out there for us for insurance coverage. So that's been increasing steadily for us. And the annual increases into our utility rates. As well as the increased workload on human resources as recruitment remains really high, has been mentioned. and as well as continue our annual increases to our capital asset reserve contributions to ensure that we're fully funding all of the major assets as work is required. So that moves into non-discretionary increases related to utility and insurance of 163,000 in expense for next year. And our discretionary increases are involved in contingencies for wage negotiations, increases to the transfers to capital reserves, as well as putting in a new HR specialist position to help out with recruitment, which will pull away some of the work that is involved our supervisors into as they're trying to keep their staffs full so that they can concentrate on the programs and so on, which they should be doing. Overall, the total expenditure increase for next year, budget to budget, is just over $1 million. And we increased our program offerings and performance expectations by 834,000, which leaves a difference of 232,000 or a 4% increase for next year to compensate for that. And as mentioned up there, the 2023 increase was 5%, which we're continuing to strive to have that brought down to historical levels, as it was a bit higher for the last few years. Overall revenue wise for next year, the 2024 budget, as mentioned, is 835,000 or 11.9% higher than the 2023 budget. This includes an average fee increase of 4% on programs and rentals and admissions, as well as the increased performance expectations that we've seen this year. And then moving out, we've averaged a 3.5% increase in future years for forecasting. For expenditures, it's an 8.3% increase over the year. So a lower percentage increase, although it's on a higher number, of course. So it's over 1 million increase in expenditures with a 3.5% increase in future years for projections. Our capital projects for next year total 1.9 million. There's quite a variety of projects between replacing of equipment and different maintenance that is required. The one I did want to bring up is that we have the pickleball court build in there. That was discussed with an ownership meeting in the fall. So we've kept that in there, and we've listed it as being funded through grant funding. And so we'll continue to go for grants to actually make that happen. This is a result of this year we hired a consultant to look at that. And this is putting 6 outdoor courts down by where the tennis courts are. So we've got staff currently right now looking online and whatnot, trying to find grant funding for infrastructure and so on, so we can bring that forward, looking to either find full funding or partial funding. And then we'd come back through the board, through yourselves, to look for either contributions from the ownership or drawing from our reserves to make that happen. Other than that, as far as the projects go, the remainder is covered through our reserve, as well as we being taking care of the landlord aspect for yourselves with the library. That is also covered by our reserve funds, which are contributed by all the ownership and the library themselves each year. Into the reserve continuity. More of this is just to show we continue now to show in the black. As I mentioned last year, as of the end of 2024, we would have been in the red in previous years. So that's been increasing steadily due to our increasing of contributions each year, which started off with the recommendation from the ownership into 2021 at 60,000 a year, as well as we continue to grow that as best we can. And any surpluses that we've received also go into the general capital reserve to help cover those projects as well. And so we've got a steady growth as we move forward, and we'll continue to try to grow that so that we ensure that we're fully funding the upwards of $111 million of assets of all of yourselves, as well as the ownership that we look after. The converted assessments is information we receive from each of the ownership's CFOs, and this is what is used through our agreements to determine the proportion of the requisition increase towards each ownership. On here, you'll see on the average change for the year of the 5 owners was a 17% increase in converted assessments. Colwood had the biggest bump of 20, which is 3.4% above, which has led to an increase of 0.63% of the ownership, which alters how that aspect. And that's why when we have a 4% increase, it's not exactly 4% for each of the ownership, because it's based on the converted assessment. So that works out to about a 7% increase on compared to our request from last year related to Colwood's contribution. 2024 and forward into the 5-year plan of requisitions, as mentioned, is a 4% increase for 2024, dropping. Our goal is to drop to 3.9 for next year and continue that trend downwards as best we can. That 4% increase for next year is a total of 232,000. 2.33% or 135,000 is related to operating costs. 1.67 or 97,000 is related to increases into the contributions for capital reserves. As mentioned, 60,000 of that is the annual increase as requested by the owners back in 2021. As well, we've made increases to the fitness equipment reserve related to the how much it cost last year to do the replacement, as well as the bus reserve, our EV charge reserve for replacements, as well as with the skate park now online, future work for the skate park. The requisition increases continue to be in line with the 5-year plan that we had approved last year. That estimation for taxation impact as it relates to Colwood is an $88,000 increase, which is 0.46% as related to an estimation of Colwood tax effect, or $4.69 per capita. On that note, I actually was able to run some statistics to look at around the region as that comes up right now. And currently on the West Shore, our operation based on 85,000 residents on the West Shore from the latest statistics is $71 per resident, whereas our counterparts around the region on average, without naming certain municipalities, around $150 per resident for running recreation. So just as a little comparison statistic wise, so it shows some of the effectiveness of the collaborative approach that happens on the West Shore. Some future outlook looking into 2024, the governance agreements expire in February 2025. So on the strategic priorities for the board of directors is to look at that and provide recommendations to the ownership. So I've just got that in there to point that out to something that needs to be looked at by the ownership moving into throughout this year to be prepared for the early stages of 2025. As well as within the consulting budgets, we've got money to have someone look at the pool. The pool is now in its current state is now 23 years old, which isn't that old for a pool facility. Some of the difference with ours is we have a Merthyr pool system, so it's not a concrete tub. It's in a steel base that has a liner within it that has to be replaced every 15 years. And so far, the last replacement was in 2019, and unfortunately, every year we've had leaks. And so something needs to be looked at that system as far as what options are out there. So I've got consultant dollars in there to have someone look at that so I can present that back to the ownership in the fall. So there's some kind of planning there. Nothing is imminent by any means. It's definitely potentially costly. So I want to make sure I've got that information out in front of everybody moving forward. And lastly is just a summary of a Colwood overview. So currently moving into 2024, the ownership of Colwood of the society is 22.44%. And to break into how that compares into our usage, in our database, 12,580 clients are Colwood residents, which is 31% of our database. 654 memberships, or 31% of our memberships, are related to Colwood residents. 4,342 registrations, or 31% of our registrations. 33% of our drop-ins. 28% of our life clients, which is the leisure involvement for everyone. So that's one of the regional financial support for those in low income. And 31% of all transactions that we did in 2023 are related to Colwood residents. So just as a bit of a comparison to what the 22%, how that works out to the usage. So in closing, I believe that we continue to offer varied recreational and sporting opportunities for the West Shore in a very cost-effective way. Thank you. Any questions?
Thanks very much, Grant. That was a great presentation. I'll open the floor to council for questions. Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Grant. And I believe you've done a good job glossing over a lot of information. But I think you also need to toot your horn a little bit more because as the representative for our community, I mean, I believe this is a gold standard facility, and the operation is unbelievably professional, and I'm happy to participate on behalf of the community. Golf rounds, unbelievable. I did the quick calculations. It's like 90 rounds a day, every day, all year long. That's an unbelievable number of golf rounds, and I believe that facility should be protected because it is so well used. It offers an alternative where you can involve young people that can't hit the ball 300 yards like me. Just kidding. And the way the weight room has bounced back after COVID, unbelievable, and all the new equipment in there is extremely well used and well received by lots of good comments from gym users, and especially the upgrades to the spin cycle room and that
Mhm.
equipment as well. Again, super well received. The pickleball, that's an unbelievable opportunity, and I look forward to progressing that in this next, hopefully this next calendar year,
Mhm.
making some progress on that with regard to funding. A couple of questions or points to cover here. The new roof, I didn't really hear you speak about that. Is that underway or is that ongoing? I'm trying to remember exactly where we're at, or the repairs to the roof.
Yeah, through the chair. It's ongoing right now. And so it is due to be done by the end of the year. The latest rain, they of course weren't up there, but they're up going. It's kind of interesting. It's a large, $890,000 roofing project. It's huge, immense. But because most of it, you can't really see them from the road, they're now on the front edge. So you can see them up there, but they've been up there since the beginning of October.
That's great, and that's long overdue.
Yeah.
So
It's
that's
been leaking.
that's good for the facility. The insurance premiums, and I know that that's a pressure point that the board has identified as well. And you know, you touched on it, but can you maybe discuss what our options might be for the future? And I know that Langford is looking to move towards participation with the MFIA, and I'm not sure where we're at on that. And I think you were going to explore some alternatives as whether we could be involved with the MFIA absent one of the owners.
Yeah, actually, we've looked at it and it would have to be approached through the ownership. But as it stands right now, Langford is the only one that's not part of it, which is why we can't take part in it. They are considering it as well. So they're looking at that. We've got ideas of costing so they could compare that to the overall costing aspect to it. And we're just waiting to hear on what happens from that.
And we're not locking into a contract if something changes with regard.
We're only year to year. We have an agreement, but I believe we're going into the last year with the broker, but the actual insurance providers, it's only annual.
And help me out. I believe the current you piece together the insurance from different companies. Like
Yes.
it's not.
So the major issue is on property, and it used to be that we had one provider for that. It's now split between four, I believe, three or four. Looking at way, it's at least three, but I believe it's four, and that's been the challenge. Is not one of them wants to take on the full risk. So what's interesting, and one of the ways that we're very efficient on our operating is because we're all in one location. So in particular, it shows up when it comes to the ice plant. So we can have one ice plant operator that's covering both plants. But that same efficiency and the close proximity from an insurance standpoint makes us a high risk because if there is any kind of major issue, the chance of one of that affecting multiple sites is far greater. And so that drives our risk up.
So hopefully we can make some progress with that in this next calendar year, because I think that the current configuration is somewhat clunky, and I would love to see us move that forward. And the 4% lift, I mean, from the stats that you show there, I believe that we as a community are punching above our weight. Like we're getting a good bang for our dollar there as far as usage goes, which is nice to see. And I'll yield with my thanks, Grant and staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I just have a few here. Grant, actually, one's going to be towards you, Jen. Do you have problems with lifeguards, by the way, for your swimming? Is that an issue for you?
For lifeguards?
Yeah,
It hasn't been too bad. We actually are now up to a staff of 70. So we haven't had the issue. We're the only pool in the region that's been running. We've never really had to reduce our schedule. We've been able to maintain that.
Okay.
And a lot of that has been because of the internal advanced aquatic classes that we put in a lot of time into.
And the second slide you showed 2022 versus 2023 as far as numbers. So your fiscal year ends December, so those numbers are going to actually be even better.
Yes,
I would.
They will continue to grow.
Yeah, so that's really good. And you asked a question about the municipal insurance. And I just want to confirm the surpluses, the operating surpluses you get every year, they go into the capital reserve?
They go into general capital reserve.
General capital reserve. Okay, thank you. And yeah, that last slide was very telling. We're certainly getting a pretty good deal on this. Jen, I'm just going to ask you the question because I've seen this. When they do these requisitions, like I saw the one for the library. I'm trying to change subjects, but everyone seems to use a different census number. Like the numbers are, like I noticed with the library, our population was a lot higher, and Langford's was a lot higher, and so I'm just wondering, how do we decide? Do we decide it's the last Canada's, the national census? Is that what it is for the rec center? Is that how we do that?
Great question. So no, I mean, ultimately requisitions are proportionately allocated depending on the cost agreement in place. In terms of the West Shore Parks and Rec Society, it's allocated based on the proportionate share of assessment valuation. So that slide that was referenced as the converted assessment.
Yes.
So simplifying here, the conversion is we look at both the taxable assessment of the municipality as well as the assessment of exempt properties, so PILT properties. And we then compare that overall to the participating membership. No population factors considered in this event.
Okay, so no, but it's interesting enough that the presentation does a per capita cost per person, and I'm looking at it, I'm going, wow, but your number's really old because we're about 10% higher than that number. So actually, it's a better deal for us, to tell you.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as you make it out to be. I just picked that up. I just see the numbers and I go, so actually, it's better for us. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you very much, Grant.
Thank you.
And Mr. Earl, we got 5 services to go through tonight: engineering, development services, community planning, community communications and education, events, arts and culture. We don't have any unfinished business from the 4th, so we'll just move right into new business. Over to you, Mr. Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship. In the engineering service area, council expectations consistent application of the OCP, bylaws, strategic priorities, policies, and regulations of the city. Effective and relevant management and oversight of traffic in Colwood. Ensure that developers are aware of the city's policies and specifications during the application process in a timely and efficient manner. Delivery of high-quality capital works and services that meet our community's needs, engineering standards, and reflects our environment, changing climate, universal accessibility, and fiscal responsibility. Apply a street design that reflects the city's mode priorities: active, transit, goods and services, and vehicles. Decisions will consider the climate emergency and how to mitigate and adapt to it. And asset management is supported through master plans that envision future and the implementation of an asset management system.
Thank you very much. Council, is there any expectations you'd like to add, edit, or delete? Open the floor. Councilor Jordison.
Thank you, Mayor. I just looking at applied street design that reflects the city's mode priorities. I know I recognize it's probably not a mode, but is there a way to put accessibility in there somehow? Accessible to ensure that that's a key thing that's looked at. I don't know if that's the right place, but it's an observation. Thanks.
Your Worship, we can add accessibility. We can determine the wording of where to add
Your
accessibility.
wordsmith. Okay, thanks very much. Perfect. Okay, we'll move on, Mr. Earl.
Does council have any questions on the statistics page?
Yes, I do. Sorry. Can you just explain these ones, the developer contributed assets, and the other one was the bus boardings, yearly boardings. I just want to make sure I'm clear on what those measurements are.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to take a second to give a shout out to Jen and Robert. I've been involved in more than 25 budgets in my career, and this is by far the clearest, most efficient, engaging process I've had with regards to budgets from a team perspective, and also I think a council interaction with regards to getting the information across. I've been really impressed. I probably shouldn't say that because I missed last year because Joshua did it. So I'll try to live up to how he did last year. With regards to
And how much did Mr. Earl pay you to say that?
well, I do know I have a review coming up, so it might be helpful. With regards to the contributed assets, every time a developer builds something that eventually becomes owned by the city, you'll notice that number is quite a bit lower this year. And the reason for that is we haven't acquired a lot of these. We wait a year. There's basically a warranty period of 1 year.
So we don't actually recognize it as ownership until 1 year after it's been built and all the deficiencies have been cleaned up. Then we take on ownership. So this year we just happened to be in a weird year where we had a lot of construction, but not a lot of the previous year's construction has fallen out of warranty lately. So that number looks low. I would suspect that next year that number is going to look a lot higher than what it does this year. The onboarding with regards to yearly onboardings, that's just a transit number that we get from them for all of our stops. So that basically gives us an indication, and transit uses that to determine where we can do shelter improvements and why we want to do shelter improvements.
Okay, thank you very much. It's great to confirm that. Okay, that's it. No other questions. Please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll move to successes, challenges, and opportunities then.
So I just wanted to point out that Josh Andrews is here with me this evening, and he's graciously come along to help me out and answer any questions that I can, hopefully.
Thanks, John. Yeah, so some of the successes we've had in the past year, I won't go through every one of these on the list, but some of the highlights are developing the traffic model that'll help us model the flows of traffic through Colwood, so that when we go to design intersections and roadways, we have an idea of what we're designing to. As you'll remember, the sanitary master plan was presented and endorsed by council this year. I think that was based on the original was the 2013, so it was maybe a little overdue there, but we are glad to have the new sanitary master plan to work off of. The same goes for the stormwater master plan, which was also presented to council this year. So we're glad to have that in place. Another success that we're glad to have completed is the Bexhill sewer extension. Bexhill Place and the homes up there are now flowing into the sanitary system in Colwood. The second part of that will be a land transfer that is currently in progress, and we're hoping to finalize that early next year. So Colwood will take ownership of a nice parcel of land up on Triangle Mountain there. So great benefit. We also established a formal traffic calming protocol. So when people have concerns about high speeds and high traffic in areas, we now have a formal process of adding those concerns to our list and taking traffic counts and using that data to inform how we respond to those complaints and whether further action is required. What else here? Oh, the Galloping Goose pedestrian bridge. So we have awarded, thanks to council, to SureSpan. And actually, you'll see on Monday we're coming back to council with an award recommendation for the project management of that project. So very much looking forward to getting that going in the new year. We finished the Owens and Ben Homer sidewalk projects in town here, and they look pretty good. So we're glad to get that behind us. Also, the Latoria VMP roundabout, we're almost there, getting really close. You may have heard about a traffic or a hydro pole in a laneway, which I agree looks a little peculiar. We might wrap it in some lights and get a candy cane effect going if it happens again. But rest assured, that's coming out as sooner than later, I hope. But we're beholden to hydro, and they work on their own schedule. So we had a decision whether we wanted to keep the intersection enclosed until hydro deemed to show up, or pave temporarily. Now you'll see there's a few barriers that were always planned to be in place before we opened, and we're planning to open based on hydro's connection, which should be coming next week to power up the lights. We should be open by the end of next week. Construction will continue outside of that, but the traffic will be flowing. What else there? Oh, the buffered bike lanes on Painter Road. That was well received by the community as well. You see those, what were the curb plunking? The curbs were all placed down, and I think we've had some pretty good feedback on those as well this year. Those are the highlights. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Proceed on. That's good.
Awesome. I was told by Marcy I only have 5 minutes, so I'll be quick. Challenges and opportunities. We continue to try to improve our relationships with BC Hydro transit, some of the other shallow utilities company, they're always a challenge. BC Hydro, though, I have to say philosophically has changed over the last several years. They've been a lot more engaging, and they've been a lot more upfront with regards to opportunity to discuss various projects. So I do I mean, it's still a struggle, and I think the VMP roundabout was a bit of an issue there, but I mean, they're doing their best as well, and they're inundated with a lot of work as well. We're still struggling with cost estimates for construction projects. They're all over the place. Contractors are having a tough time getting labor, and when they do get labor, it's usually not people that are experienced. They're losing staff and then bringing on new staff that have to learn their new ways. So we're struggling with contractors. Consultants are having the same kind of issue. Their seasoned people seem to be moving in and about, and we don't seem to be always getting the best of the consultant has, and we're doing a lot of training with regards to young engineers, which is a great opportunity and does speak to sustainability with regards to the profession, but at times it can lead to mistakes, and in other cases it can lead to unseen contingencies, which then cause cost escalation due to change orders, which are always at a premium. So we continue to struggle with that. So we are putting and hoping to put budgets in front of you that we consider to be conservative, so that we can try to put together something that we think is a reliable number. So we're continuing to strive to give you numbers that you can feel a sense of safety is built in there, that we can deliver what we aim to. We are still working on the drainage upgrades in Allendale lands, thanks to Sandra and the communications teams. Recent webs, I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at her wording. I think I sent her like 8 words, and she somehow turned that into like 300 words of poetry. So it was pretty amazing. So it's always great to have the communications team. I'm not used to working with one, and it's a great benefit for us in what we do. I think the way the public can receive that information, we tend to just say, hey, look what we've done, and they seem to spruce it up a little bit. So it's great. That's all we have for challenges.
Thanks so much. I just have a quick question on
Yep.
it. So what do you think we can do about this? Like, we're the ones that wear it in the end, because, for the inexperience of contractors right now, is there anything we can do about it, John? Like, do you think? I don't know. I can't think offhand, but, we seem to wear it a lot, a lot of mistakes by, people that aren't really are junior, and we're ultimately, the buck stops here at City Hall, right? I just don't know what to do to combat that. If you have some ideas and how we can get around that.
If I had an idea, I wouldn't be here. I'd be a consultant. But I think one of the things that we're striving to do when we're looking at our consultants and who we're trying to bring on board, we are asking them to try to provide us with better staff. And we have on occasion talked about perhaps if they've got a proposal, and if we change out a couple of staff for more senior staff, that's always going to mean an hourly rate's going to change. But that's maybe a tactic we can use, where we say, okay, we don't want the EIT that comes in at $80 or $90 an hour. We'd rather have like an intermediate tech or something like that comes in at 120. So upfront, it might result in an extra 2,000 or 3,000 in that proposal. But on the backside, because you're not seeing those mistakes in the field that are missed, and sometimes it's not about a mistake, it's more about looking at the construction process, seeing what's going on, and realizing this path we're about to go down, if we stop now and change it and alter it, we can save a few dollars. And somebody that's been in the construction business for a while can see that. So sometimes it makes sense perhaps for us to pay a little bit more upfront to see if we can maybe do that. So that might be something we could explore. We haven't to date, but then again, that leads to a little bit more upfront costs. But I think in the long run, it might be a prudent idea to try that. So maybe banty that around within the team and see if that's a viable alternative. But off the top of my head, that's the only thing I can think of.
Okay, thanks.
You bet.
Just a short point is that on Monday, there'll be 2 RFP award recommendations that are coming to council. Those are done and weighed by staff. And so that's one of the things that we've tried to keep in mind when we're weighing those RFPs, what staff those proponents are putting forward to deal with the project. So it's just one metric, but it's certainly in the front of our minds when we're weighing them as well.
Okay, thanks. And you got to watch the bait and switch too.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I shouldn't say that. I used to have 350.
You were in the industry, so you're familiar with it.
Oh yeah. Councillor Day, please.
Thank you. I just, I didn't find the exact spot, but I know that you're doing more bus shelters and trying to improve our transit options. And one of the issues that, I mean, shelters are definitely needed, but for accessibility, it can often be that they're not as accessible just because we like to put benches there so people can sit down and not have to bring the plastic chairs from their backyard. But at the same time, if you're in a wheelchair or with a mobility device and you want to wait for the bus and not be in the rain, you need to be able to get under the shelter. So there is some designs that I've recently seen at some of the larger bus stops where they have, you know, a bench on either end and an opening in the middle. So somebody with a wheelchair could wheel in under the cover much more easily. And I just wondered if that is something that you've looked at or could look at for the accessibility factor, especially where we're linking into transit.
Certainly, the shelter you're referring to with the two benches, that's a, I think transit calls it a level 2 or something like that. So that's a little higher up on the levels. I'm not sure if we've got one of those that are coming up. I think with the new frequent transit stuff, I think we've got a couple of upgrades that are coming up. So that is something we can look at. I think the other thing that BC Transit's recognizing with regards to accessibility is that a lot of their shelters now have more of a cantilever type design as opposed to that typical rectangular on the sides to keep the wind out. They're basically saying, okay, let's not go with that design, which tends to enclose it. Once you put the bench in, you can't get on either side of it. So I think one of the other things we can do is make sure that those cantilever type styles are something there. So we'll be cognizant of that and have that conversation with the next step and try to move in that direction instead.
Yeah, even the places that I think of in Colwood that are especially in need of those types of shelters are those that are closest to our bus exchange. So near where the Galloping Goose Bridge is going to go in, if you might be moving something, that would be a place to consider. Maybe that shelter fits better somewhere else. And you put that other style at the place where there's a lot more people and a lot more desire. Some people are using the bus, some people are using the sidewalk, and it's quite congested. So those are good options. And the other thing that I wanted to mention was just in regards to the contracts and consultants that we use, that recognizing that we're in an environment where we don't always have a lot of choice in the consultants who will be available to apply for the projects we're needing them for, perhaps structuring our contracts with a benefit to the consultant if there aren't those issues, so that they would actually get more at the end of the contract where it's been successful, rather than you know, us simply having to fix it after it's done wrong. That there was a kind of a built-in incentive for them to use their best staff or think a little further ahead.
I love that idea. That is, I really like that idea. And I think we'll take a look and see if there's something out there that we can copy from somebody else. And if we can't, maybe we'll lead in that idea. I really like that idea of setting a percentage of change orders to the contract overall cost and saying if the change orders come in at less than that, which shows that they've done a prudent design and that their inspectors are out there really putting an eye on it to give them a benefit. I should have said that, your worship, when you asked me what we can do. That's my answer.
I have a couple other ideas I'm going to pass on to you after.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're on to
Priorities, please.
I wanted to go back to successes because those make us look good. I'll go on to priorities, which we actually got through a few. We did start the process with the Galloping Goose. We're excited to get that process started. And as Josh mentioned, we're coming back on Monday to do the next step in that process to get that construction project underway. We did buy those eco cameras through a grant, so we were allowed to, and we're getting excited. We haven't got them all installed yet, but it's going to allow us to monitor our mode shift with regards to cyclists and pedestrians. We're also in the process of purchasing a portable pedestrian cyclist counter so that we can start putting it up in different places. And when we do and build construction sidewalks and so on, we can do a post and a pre and a post count with regards to that to see if those projects are actually making a difference when we build those construction projects. When we buffer, when we take a buffered lane and convert it to a protected lane, again, before we convert it, we'll get some counts on the cyclists, and then we'll do another count to follow up once it's protected and see if we see a change. So that'll be a program that'll be ongoing, and you can't just take a count in March, set up the protection, and then take a count in September. That wouldn't be reliable, but we'll do it over a year, and eventually you'll start seeing some of those statistics come back, and it may help us with regards to recommendations on where we're pushing our projects along the way. So we're hoping that helps us. We're also working with transit on the BC Transit project at Souk and Whale Road. That's going to be a big project. They're just about ready to go to tender. We envision sometime in the spring or early summer that construction project will start. That project did, I'll get to it further down, but that project did have us to pause on our signal light coordination project that we were hoping to do, because we have worked with Royal to coordinate our signal timing sheets, basically from Chosen all the way through down to the Trans-Canada Highway. They wanted to wait until their portion of the transit work was done, so that they've got three lights, I think, in there that they work with. So they'll do their work and we'll do our work at the same time. So we've already got an agreement in place. So once that construction project's done, the following year we'll come along and coordinate that entire corridor. So we're looking forward to that. So that is in progress. As council's aware, we've been working on the traffic model. Our next update, I'm hoping to fit in sometime before Christmas to go back. And if you recall, we're going to do those extra scenarios from the first time we did that. So we're going to come back and talk about what Latoria is going to look like in the future, what Machosen is going to look like, what placing a few roundabouts throughout the network will look like. We'll bring those all back to you. We're also getting ready to do work on Lookout Dam with regards to a new manual and keeping an eye on the dam. We're again following up with development cost charges on roads. We're going to be continue that program, so you'll see that in our 2024 priorities. We are currently working on, and you've seen a little bit with regards to our projects for storm and sanitary. We'll be carrying that into 24 as well. Corinda Lane, we've got a temporary design that's just about done. And we're going to do a temporary fix and then hope to do a capital project in the future with the waterfront program, because it'll be going right by there, and we'll use that economies of scale to do that work at a better price. And we've delayed the upgrade at the signal at Souk and Kelly Road for now. We're going to take care of that in 24. It's everything in 23.
Please proceed.
Okay. Questions? 2024. Like I said, we're going to start the construction. We're hoping to see actual designs come in sometime in the spring, early summer, work towards that. One of the great things that with regards to the choice that council made was that they'll do a lot of fabrication off site. So it won't be inconvenient to the public for a vast majority of the construction that's basically occurring in the background. So when they show up, the inconvenience to the public is significantly shorter than most of the projects that were sent in. So we had 2 applications that worked on that premise, and I think that's what led you to one of the reasons, I'm sure, that led you to the choice that you made. We're continuing to work, and we started our first engagement piece with council on the transportation master plan. We'll be coming back in January to update that with regards to next steps and a public engagement process. Once again, Sandra and her team are going to be vital with regards to giving us some ideas what works best in Colwood for our consultants to work with, and I'm sure they'll help guide us along the way in that project. So we're looking forward to that. We're coming back with some sanitary sewer network expansion plans. That came as a result of Josh putting together the sanitary master plan. So we will actually come back with a matrix on how it works with regards to where we're going to start thinking about septic sewer replacement, what the consequence of developers building in the area is, talk about allocation, talk about capacity. All of that we'll work through with council in 2024. A couple of the other things we're working on is the active transportation projects. So as council will remember, we deferred Fulton for now, but we will be doing Lagoon, Kelly, Adai, and Hagel. So they will start their designs, and we're gonna let that project in February, hoping to get our best price for spring work, and then that work will occur through the spring and probably into the early fall of 2024. And I think that's it. I guess I'll just mention that Bexhill Sewers, as council's aware, once the sewer was done, we're taking over a bunch of land there for that cost. And we're in the process of dotting all those i's and crossing all those t's to make that land transfer happen. So we should be getting a nice big chunk of land up in Bexhill here in the next 3 to 6 months. That's all I have.
Did you get 100% participation when you did that, the sewer lines up in Bexhill? Was that 100%?
Yes.
participation? It was.
Yep.
Well, that's really good.
Yeah.
We should do a story on that one. It's good.
Did you hear that, Sandra?
Councillor Day.
Thank you. Maybe I missed when you were talking, but the rock face and retaining structure maintenance program, it says it's completed.
It's with the consultant right now. Its last draft is coming to us. We were hoping to get that last draft when this was published, so we could say it was completed. So it was in there, but we're hoping to see it in the next week or two, and then we'll implement that program in 2024.
So it's not, it hasn't been monitored. You're just doing a report on how you're going to monitor it.
It has been monitored, and that report will tell us give us a matrix with regards to our priority for our maintenance. So what one should be done on an annual basis. So do a risk assessment, and then what one should be done on like a 5-year program and so on. So no, that will be the result. That they have already been reviewed as part of that.
Okay, and will that be costed as we go?
We'll figure out, that'll be part of our, I guess we'll call it asset management plan. So we'll have like a 5-year program that will do so much. Now, depending on what we get for actual results, that will determine what that 5-year number looks like, whether it's 30,000 a year or 50,000 a year, based on what they tell us.
And when you're monitoring everything or only the things that belong to the city?
Just the city works.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, John and Josh. Just a quick question on the safety review of the Lookout Dam. It says that it has to be done every 10 years and it was deferred to 2024. So it should have been done in 2023, but I didn't see it in your 2024 priorities. So I was just wondering if that was just missed or. Right?
Miss.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Oh yeah, no,
I noted it as,
it makes sense.
okay. So,
Unfortunately,
so we should probably add it to your.
we will add it to our
2020.
priorities. Thank you for
Okay.
pointing that out.
Yeah, thank you.
It's heartening to see you're actually reading this stuff. See what I mean about the process that actually works.
Any change in priorities by anyone in council? Suggestions? Nope. Seeing none, we'll move on to the finance. Jen.
Thank you. The engineering operating budget represents approximately 4% of the city's overall operating budget. When we look at the funding for this service area, approximately 35 to 45% of the funding is generated through the city's taxation. And the remainder of the funding for this area comes by the way of development related and works and services user fees. Commented briefly on this allocation of building permit revenue to service areas that support the development function. Since we introduced that allocation, it really is based on an estimate. And that is something that we are looking to refine in the future as we refine how time is being tracked by our teams. That will help refine that allocation. So this budget is prepared consistent with last year in that we have a 10% allocation of the building permit revenue to support this function. When we move into the core operating budget for engineering administration, approximately 90% of that budget is that of our team's personnel, which is outlined within the service profile. Do you want to comment some of the time, approximately the equivalent of 1 FTE is incurred within our capital program for the works and services, the capital infrastructure works that we deliver. As well, we do allocate a portion to the sewer utility. to ensure that it is funded through the sewer utility. Moving into new service areas, with the recent work on Colwood's traffic study, we have incorporated additional funding ongoing into the operating budget to ensure that we do have the funds there to update that study, to revisit that study as necessary. This budget does also include a proposed transfer to reserves. Commented on this previously. Those transfers as we head into budget deliberations in the new year are under review, but we are anticipating some volatility in terms of the timing of the activity. So as we look and analyze our multi-year agreements, we want to ensure that that we're careful with that volatility and that we're not inadvertently understating necessary taxation as we move into the next year. Because again, some of this is timing dependent. Pleased to answer any questions you may have on the operating budget.
Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for that, and it all makes sense, but help me with the soil permit fees. I mean, are we overestimating there? It looks like thus far this year is like $8,000 when we estimated 50,000. Am I reading that right?
You are, through the chair, great question. So I mean, soil permit fees, it ultimately depends, and our engineers can articulate this better than I can, on the transfer of activity off of the private lands and over the city roads. It absolutely fluctuates depending on activity. So, you know, we've had some years where we've collected $80,000 in permit fees. 2023, yeah, we're projecting less than 10,000. We could refine it. We would likely find that we're in a position where we're just refining that amount annually. So again, it is factored into that transfer to reserves of development activity. And if it doesn't actualize, then that transfer to reserves would be lower.
So like I say, with my at-home finances, we have a little buffer built in there somewhere.
It's not a buffer,
I knew you were gonna say that.
but it's really important that as we consider our anticipated development activity, we're also considering how that is going to fluctuate over the near term, over the 5-year term. So when we actualize our transfer to reserves, and you'll see in the projected actuals within this operating budget, there is no value. There absolutely will be a transfer, but we wait until year end, the dust settles, we can see exactly what activity actualized, and then that transfer will be
Buffer.
impacted.
My definition of a buffer.
We call it safety factor in engineering.
Thanks, Jen. I just wondered if that creates some pressures elsewhere if we're not moving the same amount of earth year over year. Thank you.
So the proposed service level for engineering is to maintain. May I get a motion, please? Councillor Jensen, Councillor Grove seconds it. Any opposed? Seeing none, passed unanimous. And we will move on.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Development services, please. Thank you very much, guys. Excellent job.
As council is aware, Director Hernandez is chosen different priorities for the 2024 calendar year. And so Director Rosenberg has agreed to step in for that period. Expectations of development services. Clear communication on development applications and the development process by providing access to applications on the city's webpage, and public notice, and follow public notice requirements, including signage. Align projects with expectations of the community as articulated through the official community plan. Enable high quality building design by implementing official community plan design guidelines. Prioritize the natural topography, environment, and climate impacts, site adaptive planning in the review of applications. Encourage development that increases employment opportunities, timely processing of development applications, and support council decision-making with timely, concise, and informative reports.
Thank you. Any additions edits or deletions from council on these expectations? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have a number of stat pages that I'm confident Mayor Kobayashi will have questions.
No.
Hearing no questions, we will move on to successes and challenges and opportunities in the development services area.
Please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll note that the big difference between planning and engineering is that they give you graphs, we give you spreadsheets. They had 4 extra pages because they're all in graphs. They are quite pretty and they are effective. I just find spreadsheets are more my style. So I will work on that over the year. I'll try to come up with 1 graph perhaps sometime in there. I'm actually excited about doing this, and when Robert suggested that might want to consider it, I knew I didn't have a choice, so I said I'd love to. But that being said, I've worked along development services now since I've been here, and they shine all the time. Jasmine was a big part of that. So my job really is to just keep that going. And we've done some things to make sure that's going to happen. So one of the first things we've done is we brought Richard Roy on staff. He's a senior planner. We poached him from Sydney. And we went through a lot of people before we got to Richard because we weren't going to settle for somebody that was just cutting it. We wanted to bring somebody in that would be of value to the team. So I'm looking forward to working with Richard. You're both, everybody's familiar with Kelsey and Desiree. They've been up many times. They do a spectacular job for us. We're bringing Mari back early from her maternity leave. She was supposed to come back full-time in May. She's graciously said, I missed the team. I need to come back. So she's coming back part-time in January. So we're working with that. And we've also realized working with finance, we've put a little bit of extra money in there for consultants. So if the workload gets a little high, why Jasmine away? Because she's a workhorse. She definitely owes me when she gets back. But we've also put some money in there for consultant, and the budget you'll see tonight that Jen will speak to reflects that as well. So we don't anticipate having any issues with regards to service delivery. I think it's going to move forward wonderfully as long as I don't get in the way. So with that, let's talk about the successes. I'm happy to talk about what this team's done this year. They started out with a very small team. One of the things that Jasmine was able to do is to bring a few more people on. So we brought on Caitlin and Daniel. They're not here tonight, but because we've been bringing in these processes and these templates, they were able to hit the ground running and basically just see these spreadsheets that basically tell them, here's the step, here's step 1, here's step 2. So with Kelsey and Desiree's guidance and Jasmine's guidance, they were able to hit the ground running. And then obviously we brought Richard onto the team. He's only been here about 6 weeks, but he's picking up fast. I think he's already had more documents than I have, to be honest with you. He's a reading machine. We continue to work with our management software. Tempest is getting better and better every day, and the communications between building, development services, and engineering is increasingly becoming more efficient, and we're not dropping the ball as often with regards to, okay, I wasn't sure where that was, is that here? So that's worked really well for us. And one of the huge successes is the development services team, guided by Kelsey and Desiree, have brought on all these e-form application forms. So developers basically can hit a button, come in, pick up all the documents that they need, and then submit them all electronically. And we can see right away where they're short, where they need to go. And if you looked at those stats, that's one of the reasons why our times with regards to processing are getting better, because the team's coming up with efficiencies through the internet interface. So it's just spectacular. I'm super excited to work with this team. So tonight what we're going to do is I'm just going to push the mic forward. I'm sure you're tired of listening to me already. And we're just going to give them each a section to talk about. And then we'll answer the questions as we can.
Thanks very much, John.
I'll turn it over to Kelsey.
I'm a loudspeaker anyways. So yeah, I'm here to talk about our challenges and opportunities, which John highlighted a lot here. So yes, while there were some temporary staff absences, our team did navigate this period of adjustment and continued with our ongoing projects. Over the year, we onboarded 2 new planning technicians and 1 senior planner. We also increased our interdepartmental collaboration, which has really streamlined our current review process. Our team has also actively supported our citywide initiatives, such as the Tempest implementation, the urban forest strategy, and updating the website. We have also seen an increase in community engagement with the North Victoria Corridor Project, the Ideas Fair, and the establishment of the Planning and Land Use Committee. We view this as an opportunity to increase our public engagement and enhance communication, particularly for development applications. We also provide staff resources to meet with future applicants to ensure that their proposal aligns with the vision of the OCP. This remains quite a key opportunity to ensure our applications are fulsome and complete at the time of submission, to streamline our processes. So that's it for our challenges and opportunities.
Thank you very much. Any questions on? Seeing none, we'll move on, please. Priorities?
Yes, I'm going to talk about the 2023 priorities. So in February, we updated our fee structure for development applications and just to adjust for inflation and ensure that we're seeing continued cost recovery. In addition, John and I've already talked about this, but we did update the application forms, and this included a development of minimum submission requirements that help streamline our application intake process. In March, we updated the land use bylaw to make it more flexible for residents to come in to build garden suites and accessory dwelling units. This was a policy that came out of the official community plan, which we were able to implement. In addition, in April, we introduced the Transit Growth Area 1 template zone. So this is a zone that we expect applications that are in the transit growth area land use designation to be rezoned to, and it provides a framework for evaluating those proposals and making sure that the developments are sensitively integrated into the neighborhoods as the OCP calls for. In November and December, we also updated our sign bylaws. So this was a direction that came from the committee. So our sign bylaw had not seen very many updates since it was first adopted in 1989. So Daniel has updated our sign bylaw to incorporate all the zones, and this is just first phase of the project. Going into 2024, we'll be doing a more wholesome review of the sign bylaw. We are also in the process of updating our environmental development permit area guidelines to be more clear and to align more strongly with the provincial guidelines and provide staff the tools to ensure that the guidelines are adhered to. And then lastly, throughout the year, we've been available and made our team available to support the Royal BC Museum Initiative. And that's it for 2023. And I'll pass it on to Richard to go over 2024 priorities.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just want to take an opportunity to say hello to those who I haven't met at this point. So yeah, I want to first off give a shout out to my teammates and colleagues here throughout my recruitment process. I was told how great the team is, and upon arriving, I've nothing short of observed a talented group of young planners who are punching above their weight. So just shout out to them. So I've been asked to present the 2024 priorities. So first off there on the list, you get the Latoria North Corridor visioning process. Phase 1 of this process is now complete. It concluded with the council presentation of the envisioned developments on November 27th. So that will be continuing as it's still in its young process yet. We'll be implementing the Gateway and Triangle Lands visioning. We're working with team consultants to integrate the Gateway and Triangle Lands vision into zoning amendments, which will upzone the nearby properties accordingly. We will be supporting ongoing work for Quarry Park. This is tackling the vision changes and continuing the work towards land acquisitions through subdivision. And I would be remiss not to mention the implementation of Bill 44 and Bill 47, which you'll see is not included on the list. The province, as of late this afternoon, released policy manuals today. So those resources are now available online. I'd be happy to share a link with you, which provides further information on the province's direction. Included within policy menu for transit-oriented areas is Colwood has been selected as one of the 104 transit-oriented areas throughout the province. And this designation will have implications for properties within 400 meters of the stop. That's the Wanda Fuco or the Colwood Transit Exchange. So yeah, on to 2023, and just some continued priorities here from 2023. So we'll continue to implement the OCP Parks Master Plan, and the Climate Action Plan through rezoning and subdivision processes. We'll support development and policies and plans and help enhance review of development proposals, including review of the community amenity contributions, form and character development guidelines, and urban forest strategies.
Thank you very much. I look forward to the executive summary when you guys look at Bill 44, the details now. We all look forward to it to see how it's going to really impact us. By the way, did they define frequent service in the details? Did anyone look at that?
Thank you, Your Worship. 15-minute service at the peak hours. And so it appears that the only routes in Colwood affected would be Goldstream and Island Highway.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yes. Sorry, Councillor Day, I'm kind of happy right now, so.
I hear you. I just wanted to comment on the North Latoria corridor visioning process that I have had feedback from residents who are close by, who have not yet felt engaged by the city on that process. So it is something that I'm hopeful that you will be doing some sort of direct reach out to the neighborhood to engage them.
If I could just ask Councillor Day, when you say nearby, are you talking up above the project or east or west of the project? Above, okay. And do you have a rough idea, a few hundred meters, like if we were to do a mail out for that area to try to get extra engagement, a couple hundred meters, would that suffice for that contact area?
Yeah, I can work. Sorry, I've lost. There we go. I could work with you outside of this meeting to help you identify that.
Great, sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, so no other comments. We'll move on to finance budget, please.
Thank you. So quite similar to the engineering operating budget, the development services operating budget is somewhat of a split between tax funded and then the development related fees. I did want to highlight in terms of the development related fees, the subdivision fees, the draft budget for 2024 is that of the approved 2024 budget. And so you'll see that update when we're back before you for budget deliberations in January. Similarly, the composition of the core operating budget is that to support the team in this area, and then with the remaining 10% or so to support the necessary contracted services, professional services. You heard from John earlier this evening. We are maintaining the existing budget that we require for our team, despite the vacancies and the city's intention to cover over the upcoming year. And that way we will have the funding should we require it for the contracted services support for our activity as it actualizes in 2024. Pleased to answer any questions you may have in this area.
Councillor Day.
Thank you. It doesn't jump out at me, so perhaps you can help me to understand what amount of resident contribution is going into support development at this point in time.
Through the chair, great question. So if we start with the 23 approved budget, right down below that transfer to reserves line is the taxation required. And so we are taxing about $438,000 to support this service area in 23. Moving into the draft 24 budget, that figure will be revised to approximately $381,000. The challenge with that is the same comment I made in the last service area, and that is of the approximate allocation of building permit revenue to these areas. As we really refine our time tracking for these teams and to really get an improved understanding, a more accurate understanding, if you will, of time spent by teams on development related activity, then we can look at refining that allocation from building and bylaw. And so I say that because it is difficult to look at these areas that are quite related, development services, engineering, building, and we're looking at the operating budgets in isolation, but the costs are somewhat related. But that is where you would see it in this budget.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that can be factored into our permit fees. Because we do need to justify the fees that we charge. And I think it's important that the community feels that to the best of our ability, we are asking development to pay for itself.
Through the chair, absolutely. And that was in part factored in the fee update that was brought before council at the beginning of this year and continues to be monitored and ensures that our fees are funding what we expect them to fund.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And oh, by the way, there was a great success, and I don't know if this is development services or engineering, but I think this is a great success that we've actually tied in before you start chopping down all these trees and clear cutting, you've tied it to the BP. So I love that. I finally. So that's a success and you should be celebrating.
That is definitely development services, your worship.
That should be in there. Okay, the proposed service level for development services was to maintain and get a mover and seconder, Council Olson and Council Grove seconds. Any opposed? Discussion? Any opposed? Seeing none, it's carried. We shall maintain. And I'm getting these googly eyes by Councilor Olson. So I think I'm just going to take a recess, a 5-minute recess for health reasons. We'll come back and we'll do the last 3 here. Thank you. All right.
Yeah, it's all good. I'll take one.
Please.
so that we can actually plan our community. Because right now, I have no idea. I don't know what percentage is seniors, like there's Canada stats are done every 4 or 5 years, right? And you get that, but what I just don't think we have enough. I don't know, in my opinion, we don't have enough details to properly plan. And that's just my opinion, my humble opinion.
Your worship, could I suggest an amendment to the fourth bullet along the lines of understand broadcast and anticipate population changes and consequential policy impacts. So to get language into that fourth bullet relative to an understanding of our population and its communication.
Yeah, that would be perfect, actually. Thank you very much. And on that note, we'll move on to the next.
Thank you, your worship. Questions on the statistics?
Straightforward.
Moving to successes. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. So I'm honored to be joined by our community planning team. Matt Blakely, senior planner, joined Colwood 3 months ago. He was a huge score for Colwood, joining us from Saanich. Carolyn Richmond, our climate planner, as you know, has done a lot of work in her 10 months here at Colwood. Also joined us from Saanich last year, or excuse me, earlier this year. And Nafisa Rashfiand, our parks planner, who is going to be making a big splash at council next week with a lot of the deliverables associated with her work with Parks Canada. So I've got a long list of successes here, so I'm not going to touch on everyone, but if council has any questions, please don't hesitate. So 2023 included the completion of our climate action plan that was presented earlier this year, as well as the Climate Planning Foundation's report. So Carolyn will be presenting an implementation plan soon on that plan, and we're excited about moving forward. We also completed our parks development cost charge bylaw that focuses on parks improvements. We are also working on our parks acquisition cost charge bylaw, which should be completed in Q1 next year. As I mentioned, we staffed our first climate planner position and started the climate action team. That's led by Carolyn. So that's an internal working group. We call it the CCAT group that meets, is it quarterly? Yes, to focus on implementation of the climate action plan. So we also are leading the implementation of the Parks and Rec Master Plan that was first created in 2021. That includes several draft management plans and facility concept plans. The feasibility study for the Royal Bay Recreation Center is going to be coming before council on December 11th and presented by Nafisa. We also completed, as you know, the Colwood Triangle Lands and Gateway Visioning Plan, and we'll be transitioning to phase 2, looking at defining the public realm in that area. We've also continued the First Nations Protocol Development Project and facilitated several really crucial meetings with the Kosapsin, Songhees, and Chanu Nations. I should note that this project is being managed by Desiree Gavins, who is helping out the community planning team and doing a fantastic job, I should say. We've also done a lot of work with the school district and completed the first collaboration capital project in the form of the Dunsmuir multi-sport courts. So we got a photo there of the grand opening. We've also completed the draft waterfront ecosystem regeneration strategy and the active transportation feasibility study that's associated with the proposed National Urban Park that, as I mentioned, will be presented next week. One of the most impactful areas, I think, is our grant surveillance and management function. So we've listed some of the really amazing successes in the last year. Most significant of which is the $6 million for the waterfront multi-use pathway. Any questions?
Seeing none, we'll go to challenges and opportunities.
So with respect to challenges and opportunities, we've got a huge opportunity in continuing work with Parks Canada. So we've got negotiating a contribution agreement that hopefully will be completed in Q1 2024. One big challenge is the tight labor market for planners in this region. We had a bit of a delay filling Jill's role. So the senior planner position was actually vacant from March to August, which was a challenge, but really proud of the team coming together with that one. I'll probably just 2023 priorities. And apologies, this is my fourth service review, but still quite nervous for some reason. The priorities for 2023 included completion of both the DCC programs for parks improvements and acquisition. As I mentioned, we completed the improvements piece, but are hoping to complete acquisition Q1. We've also begun implementation, as I mentioned, of the climate action plan, and have completed the triangle lands and vision action plan. Affordable housing is proposed as a 24 priority. We've continued to work with the Social Planning Council on the Harhat project. We're hoping to complete the Colwood Heritage Registry probably in 2025. That's pending work with the local First Nations, who we understand have an interest in various heritage areas in Colwood. 2023 included a continued ongoing lobbying for BC Transit and the acceleration of public transit improvements. We're expecting some good news in Q1. Working with transit staff, we're looking at some hopefully announcements around the 52 bus line and improving service to Royal Bay. So if that doesn't happen, so we'll be in front of the commission and asking for improvements.
Is that 15-minute service?
Hopefully a lot better than it is now. Yeah.
Sorry, if I may, and I think Mayor Kobayashi has keyed in on something that's relatively important as council reviews the implications of the materials and regulations that were released today, where the Colwood Exchange has been a listed transit exchange whereby some new rules apply. Should 15-minute service appear elsewhere in Colwood, other transit exchanges might also be listed. And so relative to the good news about increased service to parts of Colwood with transit, which we desperately need, we now need to pay careful attention to consequential regulatory impacts that we might otherwise not have been worried about.
Correct. Smack on. Please proceed. So
thank you. So lastly, I'll mention that a big priority for 2023 included the implementation of individual parks management plans for Colwood Creek, Lookout Lake Park, and Ocean View Park. We also completed management plans for Havenwood and Latoya Creek Park. So moving on to 2024 priorities. So we proposed top 3 priorities here. As was mentioned by Development Services, this is going to be impacted by the passing of the 3, what I would characterize as transformational provincial changes to our planning legislation here in BC. What we're going to be proposing is that we're going to include a review of the land use bylaw, fish committee plan, and our parking bylaw in light of those legislative changes, as well as at the same time implement what councils asked for in terms of strategic changes to those bylaws. We've released an RFP for planning support in that area, hoping to nail that down before there's what we expect to be a difficult period for procuring consulting for planning with all the changes. So as you see there, that's a review and update the affordable housing policy. This is being led by Matt, and hopefully through the RHAP project will be completed by the end of Q2 next year. The 5-year official review of the 5-year review of the fish community plan. So according to the calendar, this year would have been the 5-year update to the 2018 plan. Capacity constraints primarily prevented that from proceeding this year. However, development services, I think, as I mentioned, have taken quite a big chunk out of the work that needed to be done with the environmental development permit areas being reviewed. Implementation of the climate action plan, we're proposing as a priority, given its importance to the community and the just monumental amount of work that's represented by the plan and being led, as I said, by Carolyn's work and the CCAT team. So we're also proposing that for 2024, ongoing collaboration with local First Nations continue. We're hoping that a council-to-council dinner event is held in Q1 between Colwood Council and Songhees Council. Working on that right now. I wanted to mention the completion of a coastal adaptation plan inland floodplain analysis. So you might recall that this has been on a few priority lists over the years. We've looked at the coastal adaptation plan really being a project that's going to follow on the Colwood Waterfront Stewardship Plan. So pending completion of that plan, we'll be moving immediately to working on coastal adaptation that would go beyond our public parks and public spaces. The inland floodplain analysis is another project that was being deferred because of other work ahead of it, primarily the review of our stormwater master plan and associated work. But we're getting close to being able to move forward with this in 2024. So as I mentioned, Parks Canada is continuing to work with us on the proposed National Urban Park. We are not quite at a point where we can announce a new contribution agreement, but hopefully that'll be the case early next year. So the next one I wanted to talk about is it's a bit of a long list of representing council direction over the last year, touching on the creation of short-term rental policy regulation, tenant assistance policy, accessibility requirements for new developments, and on-site parking review. So we're looking at, if successful with our Housing Accelerator Fund grant application. So you may recall that's about a $16 million, just over $15 million grant application that would fund those projects as well as other potential areas associated with growth in the community, including capital projects. So those projects have been proposed to be funded through that grant. And if it is not, we're not successful with that application, then we would be looking at taking it on internally. Last year here, as I mentioned, we were looking to, as a priority, complete the Parks Acquisition Development Cost Charge Program. We've got our consulting team in place, and Matt is leading that project. So yes, and there's an update coming on December 11th. Also want to mention that there's new options for public art policy that we're hoping to complete in 2024. That was a 2023 project. We released a request for proposals to the consulting community. We developed based on a budget that was developed through conversations with the same consultants, but unfortunately didn't get any bidders on that RFP. So we're looking at different options to approach that, whether it be through a different methodology using internal forces and community groups potentially, but we're working on that now. And then lastly, updating the hazard layers in the Fish Community Plan is an important goal that would once again flow from the work that was done for Waterfront Stewardship Plan and the assessment of coastal inundation related flooding. And then also to look at the inland floodplain analysis and implement that into the OCP.
Thank you. Questions from council, Councilor Day.
Thank you. So where in the 2023 priorities, it says, third from the bottom, answer the question, did we achieve what we anticipated in the official community plan? It's a good question, but I guess what's top of mind that I've heard from a number of different areas in Colwood is in regards to the site adaptive planning and whether or not we're preserving and protecting those natural systems. And it does seem to be difficult to preserve. And certainly I don't think we've even begun to scratch the surface of restoring any functions that have been lost over time through prior years' planning practices. So I just wanted to focus that a little bit because it's such a broad look. There may be other areas that other people feel warrant specific attention, certainly in the business retention and attraction area, I'm sure as well. But there's a sort of a core movement that came through that OCP that I still hear resonating in the community that I'm certainly hopeful we can focus in a little bit on in the future. And being as it was in our 23 priorities and it's not yet started, I'm assuming it's fairly near to the top in our 24 priorities.
Thank you for that question. And I should note that that was really written as a lead into the OCP review that was expected to be completed this year. It's going back to the mayor's previous statements around understanding the population and the community. It's important that we, I think, develop some metrics on performance of the OCP to guide the strategic areas that we'd be looking at through the update. So that's really why that's there. So appreciate the comments regarding site adaptive planning, that we would agree that that's a key area to look at in terms of performance.
Thank you.
Councillor Jordison.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not exactly sure where this would fit in, but I just thought I should mention it. I go back to where I guess it's under the successes of liaising with the school district in support of the multi-sport courts. And I'm just, I'm seeing some other needs or desires, and I'm just, you know, that it seems that they're the ones, the school district is always the ones coming forward with the ideas and the partnership ideas. So, and I'm thinking that perhaps the city could also go forward with ideas and maybe optimize our support for groups such as like the arts and culture and in things that the school districts already have and we don't need to spend more money on, but maybe we need to help negotiate agreements or whatnot, like with the theater, for example, and in use for some of our groups that we're trying to optimize and support. And so that was just a thought, you know. I know the theater is, they're passionate about their theater, but it'd be nice to share it a bit more with the community. And it's just negotiations. It's not really, it's not going to cost a lot. So it was just one of my thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ian, I just wanted to point out that I don't think you look nervous at all. And if you say you're still nervous after 4 years of doing this, then there's no hope for me because I'm 1 year in and I still get nervous. I just wanted to quickly touch on page 2. It states one of the 5 principal functions of community planning is heritage planning. And I know that it states on here that it's pending consultation with First Nations. But I worry, out of sight, out of mind, that if it's not listed in the 2024 priorities, even if it's something that's still continually in progress, that I just felt that this should be something that's still listed on the 2024 priorities.
Thank you for that comment. And I should note that one of our concerns going into the service review just is the number of priorities. You know, we're struggling every year with unforeseen issues such as this new raft of provincial legislation. You know, that's really going to upend what we're going to be doing in 2024 to some extent. And I have to say that we're going to have to be pretty nimble in terms of how we're going to make everything work. We agree that the heritage strategy is a priority. We'd be happy to include this if it was council's wishes. Really, we're looking at least another 12 months of work with the local First Nations to get to a point where we could engage with them on what is currently a draft heritage strategy. We heard in the development of that strategy that through a survey that was sent to every household in Colwood, that Indigenous heritage was something that was very important to Colwoodians. And to find our role with respect to that area, we really need the nations to tell us what our role is and to have it being Indigenous led. So that's why we're taking a very cautious approach to it and looking at to be something we probably get to in 2025.
Okay, no, I'm satisfied with that. Thank you for the explanation.
Thank you. Councillor Jensen.
Yeah, thank you, worship. Thank you, Ian and crew. A lot of good meat on the bone there. I would like to talk about the OCP review. I'm a little troubled that we make statements or declarations publicly about reviewing it in 5 years. When I was here, when we swore it or enacted it in 2018. And really, it should say 6 years because we're pushing it into 2024. Are we I mean, you've had some challenges with staffing. I get all that, but I think it's important that we bundle this up for the public. I'm sure there's some people that are expecting us to review certain aspects of this, and they've marked it on their calendar, as have we. So maybe you can just outline for us what your plan is for that, and what the turnaround in that is.
Thank you for that question. I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, in 2018, we were at a point where we had an OCP, it was in draft, and there's an election coming, within 2 months.
Right.
Not a good political environment to be having, wholesome discussions about, that type of foundational document for the community. So I'm anxious to get it moving. Working with development services, they really stepped up with respect to the environmental development permit guidelines. That was identified as one of the critical areas, and they were able to take that on this year. We have been successful with annual omnibus updates to the OCP. So between the last major update, annually we've been coming back with improvements, which I think has really helped in terms of the current document not being completely out of line with council's expectations. But that being said, we are looking for the bulk of the work associated with the OCP to be really focused at the beginning of next year at us responding to the legislative changes coming from the province. As I mentioned, we've got a procurement process underway to nail down the consulting help we think we need to do that. And we'll be coming back to council with a work plan, hopefully in February.
Okay, so I agree. I mean, let's not just do it for the sake of doing it and then do it again when we have a good handle on all this. So that's a good reasoning. And I do see that it is listed as within your top 3 priorities. I would move your worship that, and you can take this at direction if need be, but I would like to see that the 5-year OCP review be moved up in priority, or if there's a need, perhaps it can be elevated to the top priority. And I'll yield and accept some direction on that from your worship. Or
yeah, I'm just, I don't think these are in any particular order. The 3 blue ones at the top, the highest priorities. This is what I understand, right?
That's correct, your worship.
And they're not in any particular order, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought.
and I accept that's great. Thanks.
But I think the direction here, and I feel the same way, is that, yeah, we've got to get on with that review of the OCP. Technically you can say 2018, we came in the fall of that. Yeah. Well, it started then before us. And then so
we
5 years is 2023. Yeah. So it's fall, it's 5 years now there when, so we've got a little leeway, but I'd certainly like to get that, started in that first quarter. That's for sure.
Perfect. And thank you. I think I've made my point. The only other question I had is I look, and this might be blending a little bit into the financials, but I am going to scroll up a bit with your personnel, your staff positions. Boy, it feels like there's a lot riding on some grant funding. So what's the worst case scenario? We missed the mark on certain grants, and all of a sudden we're sending somebody home? Like, is there a contingency built into this? Like, if something unexpected happens, I mean, it's great to make the applications and we've done well, but eventually someone's gonna say no or decline us. So you can tell me what the plan is for that.
Thank you for that question. It's true, we are leveraging, I think, the grant funding aspect is as much as we can. Our current arrangement with Parks Canada sees our parks planner position funded to the end of this year. As I said, we're hopeful that a contribution grant will be forthcoming next year that will continue work with Parks Canada. How that relates to staffing is yet to be seen, but we'll be able to report hopefully soon on that. The proposed administrative assistant that we are associating with the Housing Accelerator Fund grant is one that we feel would be necessary to really do justice to the body of work that would be included in that program. So that's 7 initiatives that council has directed us to undertake, including several that I mentioned before, the tenant assistant policy, several of the development related long-range planning initiatives. They would really benefit from additional administrative support. We're also seeing a lot of the work we're doing in the area of grants. Carolyn and I are really struggling sometimes with the administrative type work that's associated with those grant applications. We currently don't have a dedicated administrative assistant, so it's a bit of an inefficiency for our department, particularly in the grants area. So we're looking at that position being funded by a grant, but also supporting the grant application area. If we were successful with the Housing Accelerator Fund, it would be a 3-year funding envelope. So that would provide some certainty for that position moving forward.
Thank you. And this does bleed into the financials a little bit, but I mean, take it, these are FTEs, right? So regardless of the grant funding, are we stuck with these FTEs? Or, would we be laying people off? I'd love to know sort of what the backside of this looks like. And I'd hate to see us, my point being is the community would hate to see us lose a planner when clearly we've staffed up appropriately and we're in a good position, a better position. And I hate to see us take a step backwards if one of your grant applications didn't come through. I'll yield and listen to the response. Thank you, Worship.
Sure. I guess I have a question. When is the cutoff time? Like, I know we've got all the applications in for the Housing Accelerator Fund. Is there a time like when we're supposed to find out? Is it imminent? Like, there must be a final date that no more, right? So what is that anyways? Does anyone know on staff?
Your Worship, but the thumbnail math is the vast majority of the funding is yet to be announced.
Okay.
It feels like a political decision at this point. And that it feels like kind of the administrative side of the application process is likely complete, although we don't know, it's behind a closed door. But my expectation is the federal government will be making decisions with respect to allocations of that fund that best fits their needs.
Yeah, okay, understand. Clearly. I'm trying to be a good boy too. Not saying anything negative. So this is a tough portfolio because it just seems like there's a big mishmash of things that gets thrown into community planning, because I know we're supportive of another one that the words aren't even in here, like the village initiative. Like I'm still scratching my head a little bit. I think a bunch of us went over to the the presentation, and it wasn't what I expected. I thought I was going to walk out of there with a clear idea of how they wanted municipal support, and I walked out and I wasn't too sure, to tell you the truth. Also, I thought was great initiative, really good initiative with all the people involved, and so I don't know what our involvement is anymore with this, or if we still have an involvement. I know we signed up as a member municipality, as Langford has, but I wasn't too sure. And that, I don't see it as, on any of the priorities, or if it's even on a priority list, or it's something we're not paying attention to now, or that's an example of one. And frankly, to tell you the truth, I'm not too sure, like myself, like what they want. I didn't walk out clearly thinking, okay, so they're looking for XYZ. I mean, I did walk up with one thing. I know they're all looking for facilities. So that's something I just sort of plugged in my mind, saying, okay, if there's an opportunity with any of the developers and they're going to develop something, they want to give us a community space, well, maybe we could offer that sort of thing. That's so I guess is the village initiative even on your priorities at all, or yes, no, maybe so?
Excellent question. Thank you. The Village Initiative is a major player in the social services and services space in the West Shore. I know they situated their main goal is collaborating to get additional space for the service providers in the region. They've highlighted that as a major concern. So currently the city has an active memorandum of understanding with the Village Initiative and the school district to pursue community programming and service space at the future Royal Bay Elementary School. We're also keeping in close contact with the different members of TVI and representatives to keep abreast of their work. We did do quite a bit of work with them in relation to our Building Safer Communities project. So that work is complete and now moving to implementation. So our communications team is now working with the different service providers on the implementation side of that project. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Just so that you know, out of the blue, the executive director of the Vancouver Island United Way came to see me this morning, and in hindsight, Mr. Earl wasn't available, but in hindsight, I should have probably yanked him in, because they have a different set of money that they want to give to the TVI, but they want to do it with us as an umbrella, sort of to safeguard their money. So I'm going, I don't know. I'm not too sure. I don't get involved with this, but politically it says, we're supportive of this, but I wasn't too sure, how this all came together. And so, but I mean, I'll keep an eye out for facilities. That's, that's in the marker in my head. But so is it even a priority? Like, I don't know how much time you spend on it, or is it a priority? Because it's not on your list at all.
Thank you. To clarify, just in terms of liaising with TVI, is that?
Yeah, I guess, well, maybe it's just a normal operational thing that you guys do, right? I'm assuming then it's not.
Yes,
it's not a project per se, because you don't have a project with them right now. I don't think, correct?
Certainly, as opportunities arise, we would engage with them, as was the case with the MOU for the community spaces at the future elementary school. The recreation center feasibility study that will be presented next week will include opportunities for future community multi-purpose space. That's something for council to think about in terms of us including that in a facility for future use by service providers.
I understand how you handle it. So, okay, thanks a lot. Councillor Day.
Thank you. I just want to follow up on Councillor Jansen's question about what happens with the FTEs. If we're proposing an FTE based on grant funding and we don't get the grant, does that mean that we're laying people off?
Thanks for that question. So currently the proposed administrative assistant is a position that would be dependent on grant funding. If that grant was received, the Housing Accelerator Fund, it would provide 3 years funding. So at the end of that funding, we would be approaching council with a new proposed staff complement or a new resourcing request to support what we feel is the necessary resourcing for the function. The current grant funded role for the Parks Planner position, as I said, funded a 12-month contract, which is unfortunately ending at this time. And the future funding from Parks Canada is as I said, not solidified. So we'd be looking in 2024 to come back to council, report on what was achieved through future contribution agreement, and talk about how we'd be resourcing that. One of the challenges with the Parks Canada collaboration is the timing relative to the partners in the project. They've talked about this new concept for a national urban park being Indigenous led. So once again, involving appropriate discussions with local First Nations takes time and is one of the factors that requires some patience on our end.
For sure. And the other question that I have is in regards to either recreation space or school space in the community center for the village initiative to be able to, or any other organization within the community. I believe that some liaison with the school district is necessary to consider acquisition of an enhanced space at the elementary school. And I would also think that in order to support that initiative, one of the needs is to have a West Shore based foundry, which might be something you could ask council to provide, a letter to the province with regard to, because when Royal Bay Secondary was built, one of the benefits of council lobby for that school was that we lobbied for a community school which had additional space allocated both in the office and the counseling area in order to facilitate potentially intergenerational events that both supported students and the community. And what has happened is, because we were unsuccessful in convincing that provincial government to build a school of sufficient size for the needs in our community, our community space has evaporated into classroom space in a very crowded school. I have heard that we are promised that that space will return to us when they're able to secure sufficient classroom spaces, albeit in portables and upgraded other buildings. But that may also be something that we could work towards partnering at the elementary school on additional space, or partnering perhaps with West Shore Parks and Rec on a facility in the Royal Bay area that would also have space that could be shared with multiple users.
So excellent points. Thank you, Councillor Day. I can mention that we're in very intensive discussions with both the school district and West Shore Parks and Rec in the context of our work with Gablecraft and Quarry Park and the proposed recreation facility. We're actually looking at integrating conceptual planning of the elementary school site with the rec center and Quarry Park, which is very exciting for us. And Nafisa will be talking more about that on December 11th.
Thank you very much. Let's go on to budget. Thank you very much.
Community planning operating budget, it's a little under 2% of the city's overall operating budget. There has been a fair bit of conversation tonight, but there absolutely is grant funding that is funding this service area. Details within the staffing composition as well as this operating budget itself. So the Parks Initiative was budgeted previously as a standalone special initiative, not integrated into this operating budget for community planning. Community planning budget has been restated as a result of the city's move to centralize events, arts, and culture. And so the culture and heritage has been restated in a separate budget, as has the library requisition funding. So this budget does look a little bit different than prior year. So the community planning core operating expenditure budget is for that of the three FTE planner positions that was referenced. The proposed grant administrative position has not been factored into this draft budget, is being proposed conditional on a successful grant application that was referenced. Pleased to answer any questions that you may have with respect to this area's operating budget.
Okay, seeing no questions, I'll move on to the recommendation. Is that a mistake? Is that maintain or it's not an increase, is it?
Your worship, if the increase would only be if we're successful with the grant, so it may make more sense to hit maintain.
Yes,
If we're successful with the grant, we'll come back with the discussion.
please. That's the best way. So the motion will be the 2024 proposed service level for community planning, KTB main. Okay, here we go. Grove and Jordison. Thank you very much. Discussion? Seeing none, any opposed? Seeing none, motion's passed. Communications and engagement, please.
Thank you, Your worship. In the area of communication engagement, council expectations.
Thank you very much, Sam.
Strategic communications, planning and advice that mitigates risks and results in timely, effective messaging that advances the city's strategic priorities and builds Colwood's brand as an exceptional seaside community. Meaningful engagement with citizens and other stakeholders that builds trust and contributes to improved decision-making and understanding by residents. High-quality marketing, promotions, and branding through campaigns, events, signage, and other placemaking initiatives that reflect the city's vision, raise Colwood's profile, and advance the city's goals. Engaging community events and celebrations that strengthen the community's connections and raise Colwood's profile as an exceptional seaside community, and a website that is informative, efficient, and an effective tool for city communications.
Thank you very much. Any additions, deletions, or edits from council on the council expectations? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Any questions on the statistics? Seeing none, moving to successes and challenges.
Thank you.
Please.
So I'll touch on just a few of the many successes our team has had this year. For one, coordinating and executing the February 2023 Ideas Fair, which you all participated in, attended by over 400 people, an interactive opportunity for residents to engage in conversation and share ideas on many topics. It's been very helpful to our team for sure in shaping communications going forward and other projects. We completed the 2023 Citizen Satisfaction Survey to better understand the needs and perceptions of Colwood residents and help identify areas for improvement. Completed the 2023 Household Prosperity Report with the help of the Community Social Planning Council to understand the current state of our community through data and establish a baseline of household prosperity, guiding strategic decision-making and service planning. And just to the point, you spoke to community planning about demographics. This is a really good source for us to build upon in terms of demographics and other measures, I think. We issued and awarded the RFP and initiated the Household Prosperity Survey as a follow-up to that to ground truth the data that is in the Household Prosperity Report. So the survey is live now. At last report from our consultants, Angus Reid, we have nearing 500 responses, which is more than we have had in the past. The survey is still open for another period of days, so we hope to continue to encourage people. We spoke to some people at the light up the other night in person, which was an enlightening exercise to speak to people specifically about some of those topics. We have issued and awarded the RFP for the redesign of the city website. That work is underway now to meet that council expectation. Initiated the implementation of a new youth engagement initiative. So you were just speaking to community planning about the Village Initiative and the BC Safety Grant. This will include, so what happened there, just for a little bit of background, the city engaged the Village Initiative and other West Shore service providers to create a strategy for the city.
for how to best use that funding. That has resulted in two specific initiatives that we're working toward now, one in partnership with West Shore Parks and Recreation, who are working to recruit a youth programmer to expand their youth drop-in program, which Grant Brown talked about the success of. And a second position, we are hiring as a city to expand the city's capacity for youth engagement through that grant funding to assist with waitlist management, which was the second strategy that came out of the report from the Village Initiative. And so that work is also underway now. We hope to hire a position this week, in fact. Next, led and supported in-person and online public engagement on a variety of projects. Completed the first phase of the neighborhood wayfinding strategy implementation with a number of signs throughout the community, both funded by a grant that the city received and a number of signs funded by development teams who are implementing our standard. For example, Royal Bay throughout Meadow Park, and soon to be Olympic View implementing some of those signs as well. Another one I'll touch on, we continue to produce a series of staff videos to increase resident trust, understanding, and comfort about accessing city services, and to build team morale and pride in the work they do, which is fabulous. So I'll stop there with successes unless you have any questions about those. So on to challenges and opportunities. Our team supported the establishment of community groups. Well, a challenge, an opportunity we'd like to seek is to support the establishment of community groups and promote volunteerism by presenting options for implementation of the volunteer plan. So we did hear quite strongly through the ideas fair there's interest in volunteering. We have heard also through you folks at the council table that there's interest in promoting community groups. So through this special initiative discussion we'll be having next week or upcoming, we will be proposing a number of options for council to consider in terms of volunteering. One will include a half-time implementation or part-time implementation of the volunteer coordinator that was proposed through the plan. The second option will be a series of potential supports, small contracts to hire an individual or group to initiate community groups that there's an interest in supporting. For example, a community garden group, a Friends of Latoya Park group, waterways stewardship group, a beach cleanup and neighborhood cleanup group. So those will be coming to you under a separate meeting for special initiatives, and we can have a more fulsome discussion at that time about those. We hope to help establish Colwood as a climate leader through the Climate Action Plan with some interactive and exciting engagement strategies, which will be coming to the Environment Committee first and then to you for review. Develop new strategies for increased local engagement, local neighborhood engagement to understand and support needs and build community pride. And so we have talked in the past, members of council, about pop-up engagement booths. That would be one thing we would like to help support in specific neighborhoods throughout the community. In addition to the Good Neighbor program, which is something that was initiated shortly after the COVID period, to make that more interactive and really engage people in that process. So we'll be looking at those things. I will leave it there. I'll mention continue to create sense of place through the neighborhood wayfinding strategy as the second phase. We will be seeking your support and direction to continue that program. And the last one, advancing economic development and pride of place with a new value proposition, commercial retail strategy, and a resulting 3-year marketing plan. So as you may know, in 2021, mostly to support COVID recovery, economic recovery, that council implemented a 3-year special initiative budget for marketing strategies. That resulted in programs like the Colwood is Calling campaign, both to attract new residents to Colwood, make them aware of Colwood, and to attract new businesses. After that time, we were aware our community was evolving and we needed a marketing strategy to further guide those activities. And that's where this value proposition and retail strategy come into play. So that funding has been used to pilot various different activities, some of which include holiday lighting, bus shelter advertising, the team videos we referenced. And so this year during the budget, we hope to transition some of that special initiative funding into operational funding to continue those activities that council directs us to with a bit of a shift. I will leave it there on challenges and opportunities and invite you out there. Ask questions.
Councillor Day.
Thank you. Some of the feedback that I've received about some of our events has been around accessibility and the need to really get the information out there in terms of what your transit options might be, what your parking options are, and what sort of environment you'll be in, so that we can encourage people to come out to free, great local events, but empower them with the information so that they feel prepared to participate. And the other issue is around the volunteer engagement. I think that it's easy to invite people to volunteer, but it's more difficult to continue to support their ongoing involvement. And that seems to be really important because you don't just want to have your new friends, you want to have your old friends too.
Thank you for those comments. We'll be speaking a little bit more specifically about events in the next service profile here, so I'll address some of those accessibility issues. Thank you for that.
Just a quick question for me. I mean, you know, those the videos that we have on our website, that they're flipping phenomenal. You guys got to watch these things. I actually took the time now to step through every one of them. And did you guys produce them? Like, was it communications that produced them?
We worked with our team to prepare them, and we hire a consultant called Paper Heart Films who does the actual
They're
filming
just
and editing.
absolute, like the quality, and the guys would all look like great actors. They look like the guy that you wouldn't know there are staff.
I agree. Our
They were
team is
just
incredible.
perfect.
Yeah.
Well rehearsed. Well done on that.
Thank you.
So, you know, I was thinking of something right now. I know we had the calling the thing that we did, but you know, now that, you know, we're starting to think about, you know, the core and maybe some businesses in the future that we may want to attract, you know, or certain professions that we're trying to attract. Is there, like, there's no video that says, you know, that really snazzy little video. Is there one, like, where is that? I'm not too sure. I couldn't find that one. Is there a snazzy one that, you know, where you can sort of say, you know, when we're trying to attract a certain type of business, we send them that with a package.
Yes.
You know, why Colwood? You know, here's all our amenities. Do we have something like that?
Thank you for that
All
question.
ready to go?
Yeah, we do not yet.
Oh,
What I'm excited.
you were shaking your head. I thought,
no.
oh, geez, I missed something here.
No.
So- okay, so we
No,
don't.
I'm excited that we have engaged a consultant now to help us with the commercial retail strategy. They've done work with other communities. The proposal they've provided is very thorough. They appear to have a well thought out approach to how they will help us think through those types of things you're speaking to.
Yes.
Once we have that in hand, which I think their timeline is, we should have it by Q2 2024. Then we will work to, you know, crystallize that into our value proposition so that we can cleanly express the way you are describing what should draw people to Colwood. And following that, it will roll into a marketing strategy that will tie it all together, is the goal, to create a package like that, along with statistics, insights, all the information that businesses need to enable them and entice them to come and set up shop in Colwood.
So I don't know the legalities of this right now, Mr. Earl. I just asked a question, you know, because we're helping attract other businesses or potential people that are going to be in their businesses. Is it okay to to have communications reach out to these developers for some of that marketing money to do this? Is that all kosher to do that?
Thank you, Your Worship. As described, once we get to the point where we have that commercial value proposition and we're looking to launch a marketing campaign, it is not inappropriate for local governments to partner with local industry on such a campaign.
Okay, thanks very much. I just wanted to make sure we were good with that. Okay, that's all I have for questions, and we'll like to proceed, please.
Thank you. I'll proceed then with our 2023 priorities, most of which are complete and ongoing to advance the city's engagement efforts and support durable decision-making through priorities like the Ideas Fair Household Prosperity Survey, Citizen Satisfaction. Those are complete and ongoing. I'll mention that the Household Prosperity Survey invites residents, if they are interested, to participate in a further focus group to delve even deeper into the experience and perception of residents. So that's an exciting aspect, I think, of that program. We'll get some really good insights through that, I'm hoping. The second, promote the city through campaigns that strengthen pride of place, the sorts of things we're talking about, which is evolving as the value proposition and retail strategy we've just been speaking about. Continue to produce a series of council and staff videos to inform the public. That is complete, and we hope to continue that work. There are many topics, as you stated, that we can continue that work on. And then complete the Household Prosperity Survey and other engagement to incorporate qualitative perspectives from residents into that data that we collected in the report. 2024 priorities include that commercial value proposition and commercial retail strategy to inform our marketing strategy. Complete the Household Prosperity Survey. Continue with the website redesign. The timeline for that is that early August, we should have a new website in place ready to launch. So that's exciting. Neighborhood engagement, I had mentioned, volunteer engagement, engaging youth through the Building Safer Community Funds we touched on as well, climate action plan strategy, and then community campaigns such as living with wildlife. We've seen issues around those sorts of things. Dogs on leash will continue to be an issue as we implement the parks plan, as we know, and then etiquette, picking up after your pets, things like that. Campaigns that will hopefully help our community get all on the same page about being good neighbors, those sorts of things. I have a lot of other notes that I can't read right now, so I'll leave it there.
Any additions, deletions, edits? Councillor Day.
Thank you. A challenge that I think of when it comes to doing this volunteer engagement and promotion is that volunteers work better in groups, and we have a number of groups who come forward to us every year for grants and other things. And I was thinking that it would make a lot of sense to invite some of our community groups to do some of those videos, like what you're producing for the city, for some of the groups that are providing services within our city, so that instead of us needing to create a position to manage volunteers, that we're more directing and assisting to drive volunteers towards the groups that are already doing that. It might be a way to lessen our load, involve the community, and be more of a connection point than having to create and manage more initiatives.
Thank you for that. That's a fabulous idea. I love the idea of incorporating volunteer groups who are doing great work in our community already into our videos. I'm not sure I see the link between implementation of a volunteer management plan, but let's explore that. I would like to explore that. Maybe we can talk more. Thank you.
Councillor Georgeson, sorry.
No, it's okay. Thank you, Mayor. Sandra, yeah, I just wanted to say that I really do support a volunteer plan of some sort. And I think that the bulk of the work would probably be up front. And then I think, it would sustain itself after time. And you know, it would just be good to have all those groups to be able to, you know, engage with and not have to search for people all the time, and to know who everybody is and kind of have standards and that and policies and that sort of thing. So I'm supportive of it getting going. You know, I'm not sure that it would require an FTE all the time or anything like that, but for the startup, it definitely needs some work, needs some help. Thanks.
Thanks for that comment. I appreciate that.
So that's pretty clever. I'm very impressed, Sandra, in how you got, you know, a potential coordinator, sort of youth engagement court. I like how you did this through potential federal funding. That's very clever, very clever.
Thank you. I think it represents a really good opportunity for our city to expand its capacity to engage youth.
Yeah, that's pretty clever.
Mm.
Over to seeing no other questions. Over to budget, please.
Thank you. So this budget before you has been refined to reflect the activity of communications and engagement. Event activity has been refined to the next service area. And so what I did want to highlight within this operating budget is what Sandra has touched on. For the last 3 years, the city has undertaken enhanced marketing efforts. We've spoken about a number of them with our successes tonight. And so this operating budget does propose that we move to transition so that we have ongoing core funding to support some of this activity that has been articulated. And so that is what's before you. And as we move into 2025 and 2026, we'll see updates to those two budgets to incrementally increase. So that enhanced marketing funding, we're proposing an additional $25,000 moving into 2024. As that special initiative budget is no longer, that was a 3-year budget, and we're now looking to transition that funding here. And then we'll add incremental funding in future years for council's consideration during budget deliberations. Core operating budget, really with respect to communications, it is primarily focused on that of our team. And then the marketing and PR, this is really the first time that we've refined this budget independent of events. And so again, as we move forward, there may be further refinement required. I did want to comment, we've heard a lot tonight with respect to the implementation of a volunteer coordination plan and how the city may achieve that. We will be bringing forward, as Sandra said, during budget deliberations, a number of considerations for this council. By way of a pilot opportunity to explore a part-time position, and by way of additional opportunities to engage and support community groups. And so those considerations will be coming forward, like Sandra said, as part of the special initiative review in January. Please to answer any questions you may have about this operating budget.
This is actually an increase, though. It's not a maintain, right? This is an increase. We are proposing to increase the operating budget. Is it an increase in service? I would suggest it's an increase in sustaining the service that we've been receiving the last 3 years by way of a pilot enhanced marketing budget. I love you, Jen. Semantics. Okay. You won me over. Councillor Day. Sorry.
Thank you. I have a little niggle, so I'm just going to put it out there because marketing is marketing. It's just that it's not fact finding. It's taking what you know and putting it's putting stuff out there. Sometimes I'm concerned that we're gathering input, but we don't ensure that we're giving facts first. When we do a pop-up booth, we haven't really, we haven't given a focused presentation. We haven't presented a great deal of factual information, and the people that were canvassing are relatively random to the issue that we're canvassing. So that is, I'm just putting it out there that we need to kind of coordinate and review what we're marketing. Because sometimes these are things that council hasn't really had much of a hand in or a review of. We put a lot of faith in our staff, and I'm just feeling a bit uncomfortable with where this may go. And I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just trying to name that little niggle, because if we talk about it, we can fix it.
Thank you for that. My hope is that the commercial retail strategy process, the development of that strategy, will involve council. You will be, intimately aware of the data that they're gathering to make decisions about how we will approach our marketing. And I'd like to think that we will, all be able to get on the same page about the approach we take. I hope that answers your question.
Councillor Jensen.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I think it's a nominal increase, and I think the community is well served by this very small team of employees. And I mean, the Colwood is Calling marketing campaign got a lot of airplay, across the region. And I think it's onward and upward from there. The ask is small, and I think the impact is great. And I would support the very slight increase. So the increase option to the 2024 service level, I guess, is what we're looking for there. Thank you, Worship.
Great. So the motion is to maintain the current service level, but at an increased cost. So it's to maintain the service. Yeah, that sounds good. You all understand. So can I get a motion, please? Councillor Olson, and seconded by Councillor Jensen. Discussion? Any opposed? It's unanimous. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sandra. I think you have to say that, don't you?
I have to say it. You get to stay.
Okay, everyone, we're down to the last one here. This is new. Events, arts, and culture. Over to you, Mr. Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you have just described, this is a brand new service area. We have borrowed two expectations from the previous service area, which I just articulated. That's high quality marketing, promotions, and branding through campaigns, events, signage, and other placemaking initiatives that reflect Colwood vision, raise Colwood's profile, and advance the city's goals. And engaging community events and celebrations that strengthen community connections and raise Colwood's profile as an exceptional seaside community. If council has changes to these expectations relative to the narrowing of this focus area to events, arts, and culture, or additional expectations that you would like to add, either in idea that we could come back and wordsmith for you, or if you had specific words, we are happy to receive those.
So my only question quickly, well, let's see for Councillor Dave, but I have a question. So I'm just trying to differentiate what the arts and culture Colwood does and what this statement is. Like, what's the difference? What are we doing differently here?
Colwood supported events, arts and culture through a number of budgets that were spread throughout this document, primarily anchored in communications and public works, if I have that correctly. And at the direction of council, we try through the service review to separate out and articulate particular services that the city provides, such that council can gift us with your expectations for that service, and then titrate up or down the level of service in any given year or change the direction. So we separated out events, arts, and culture, and we have put functions in it like the library. And I think, as you have described, there's a current community group in Colwood, Arts and Culture Colwood. Should council fund them through a service agreement or another tool, it would fit within this budget area.
Super good. Now I understand. Perfect. Thank you. Counselor Day.
Thank you. To the council expectations, the first bullet is excellent. The second bullet, I just wanted to add accessible, engaging accessible community events so that the standard I'm trying to set is that there's always an accessibility information for everything that we do in Colwood. Not every aspect will necessarily be something that every person feels is up their alley or fits their desires or their needs, but that we're going to strive to provide the necessary information so they can choose the events that fit them best.
Thank you. We've captured that. Shall we move to successes and challenges?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll kick off and then turn it over to Brittany to talk about our successes. I just wanted to say that the city's event program, started really in 2015. And it's evolved over time. It started on a shoestring. It was about engaging people who were already at our waterfront at the same time as a place branding exercise to tell the folks who drive up the Colwood Strip and never see our waterfront, hey, there's more to see here, and give us an opportunity to showcase. So that's how our events really began. As popularity grew, demand grew, expectation grew, our team rose to the challenge. And so the demand for events and the energy we put into events has grown over the years. And I just wanted to set the stage in that way for our events. Of course, COVID came in 2020 and we had to shift exactly, everything we were doing about events. And that's when things like the lighting displays came into play for a passive activity that families could do individually, but feel like they were part of a community. And so just to set the stage for how we are suddenly, we receive comments like we should do eats and beats every weekend. And, without the appreciation for the work and time and resources that go into it. So just, we're growing and we're learning, and we hope to continue providing events, but under your direction in the way that you see fit. And I'll turn it over to Brittany to go through our successes and challenges. So, thank you.
Okay, so our successes, as Sandra mentioned, we have continued to implement community events, including beach food music, Colwood Christmas light up, bike to work week, and other things like that. We transitioned Eats and Beats Beach Party over to the new Beachlands location with attendance estimated at close to 12,000 people. We also supported 51 community-driven events through our special event process. We continue to implement our pageantry initiatives, which align with council's strategic priorities. We also continue to deliver programs to engage residents and enhance our sense of place and foster community pride. And lastly, we continue to support positive relations with our local nations by coordinating staff cultural awareness education, involving nations in our community events, seeking to include Indigenous art and language on our wayfinding signs, along with advising on event protocol and gifts and things like that. A few challenges and opportunities that we are facing. One of our coordinate with community planning is one of our opportunities to continue the development of the arts and culture policy, working with a wide variety of our arts and cultures group, which you have identified tonight, continuing the transition of our large events away from the lagoon area and that sensitive space, continuing to support and encourage community-led events and activities, working with the Heritage Committee to create interpretive sign and artwork, recognizing and educating about special places here in Colwood, and then gathering guidance from local nations to advance city goals, making Indigenous culture and history more visible in Colwood. A couple of our 2024 priorities to continue working with our nation neighbors to advance the city's goals for making Indigenous culture and history more visible in Colwood. You see a couple of times that's repeated. It's very important. Continuing the coordination of the Christmas in Colwood event, which you all just attended, and the lighted truck parade ending in Royal Bay. Enhancing citizen understanding and involvement of city initiatives by incorporating engagement and cultural learning opportunities into our events. And then a couple others, we have support emergency preparedness by creating neighborhood connections and sharing emergency information as part of our events. And then supporting the vibrancy of Colwood by working with a diverse group of our arts and culture groups to create interesting, engaging art projects in Colwood. And do you have any questions?
Councilor Jordison.
I just had a question in regards to changing things up a bit, or how that works. I recall last year we kind of talked about Canada Day and how there's kind of a lack of something out here in the West Shore, and not necessarily just Colwood, but in the West Shore in general. And I'm just wondering if there's any opportunity to take that on somehow, or what that could look like. It's just a suggestion. I think it's a holiday event that a lot of people look to the city for, and I just don't know where that fits in. So.
No, thank you for that. We have been in discussion with the Parks Canada team at Fort Rod Hill, and there is interest in joining together to host a Canada Day event. So we'll be exploring that in the new year. Yeah, please.
Sorry, if I may just add, when we were in discussions with Quality Foods about the sponsorship of the Eats and Meats event, they mentioned an interest. Their company started in Parksville, and in that town, they support the Canada Day light fireworks from a barge in the water. And the manager there, Jason Fisher, expressed interest in bringing something like that to Colwood. So we'll continue to pull at those strings and see if we can bring it all together for something that would be really amazing.
Much. Any other questions? We'll move on to budget.
Thank you. So starting with respect to the funding for this service area, you heard Sandra just comment on it briefly. So the city does continue to look to sponsorships to provide funding to offset the costs associated primarily with events delivery within the city. Events permit revenue also provides some funding for this service area. Moving into the core expenses, as you heard from our CAO, this is the first time we've consolidated a budget to summarize the city's support for events. And so we've brought together both the core budget previously within the communications team, as well as that within the public works team. So we do rely on our public works team to support, primarily through the labor and the resource to support for the city events that occur throughout the year. Arts and culture funding as well has been restated, and that primarily includes budgets for placemaking grants, an initiative the city introduced in recent years. Moving into the changes to the core operating budget, two changes proposed. So similar. We have been, as you heard from Sandra, utilizing this 3-year funding as to consider placemaking opportunities and changes with respect to enhancements, holiday lighting displays. And so in recent years, the city has introduced additional holiday lighting displays. This operating budget proposes that we can now sustain the funding to support those activities and initiatives as we move forward. In addition, you recently heard from Colwood Arts and Culture with a proposed fee-for-service request that has not yet been incorporated into the draft budget. But should council direct that, we would include that incremental funding, which has been put forward at a request of $1.20 per capita, approximately $27,000 for 2024. So I did want to highlight two aspects of this budget where we are looking for council resolve in terms of the seasonal light up funding and in terms of the arts and culture fee for service request. Should we receive that direction tonight, we'll incorporate it into budget deliberations in January.
Thank you very much. Councillor Day, comments?
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, there's always too much to do for almost every event. And we've been very fortunate to be able to utilize our public works for that. But I'm beginning to wonder, now that we're looking at a much larger budget, if that's something that would be better handled through a fee for service contract, or I don't know how it might be done, but with other resources than taking the staff away from our public works jobs that we have a good reason for having them there for. So it's getting to be fairly large in that this year we're looking at close to $80,000 worth of time of staff. I'm just wondering, have you considered, are there consultants that would do that? Do you think it would be possible to get more information on what that might cost to go out rather than doing it within? Or is there some really good reason why we should continue using our public works staff?
Thank you for that suggestion. It's certainly something we can explore. Much of the support that Public Works provides for these events is transportation planning, transportation rerouting, signage, things that our team knows intimately and probably best about how to direct, and would likely need to give a consultant really a lot of direction in my limited view, and maybe JR could speak better to that, but it's certainly something we could explore. We do sometimes contract out things like flag persons to help manage traffic and things like that. But our team also, you know, it's about bringing equipment from place to place. Those kinds of things we could explore your suggestion further for.
Because for me, this is starting to look, you know, we're talking about the core expenses being over $1 million here. And that's kind of not where we started.
If I may, the library requisition
Okay.
is $1.1 million.
I don't like it in here, to tell you the truth.
It's a big compound.
It just slants it differently. I just don't know if it should be here right now, because it's a core service to the entire. I'm having a hard time with that right there. It makes it look bad.
We could blame LGDE standards. Library is in part considered culture. We could absolutely have it stand alone in a separate chart within this service area. No problem at all.
You know, because it's bad, because then it looks like, oh, there's those guys again spending money, and it's you know, it's just bad. Like when I first looked at my first, oh geez, and then I looked, well, library, oh, okay, that explains it, but it was, I don't know.
Events total $163,000.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jordison.
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to explain the same thing, or state the same thing, that, you know, I'm looking at engineering and it's like a cost per resident $18 and change. And then we're looking at this and it's what it's titled and it's coming at 58. So, you know, that is, it's concerning. Yeah, so I think we have to figure that out somewhere. Yeah, thanks.
Trying to make Sandra look bad or something, or what's going on here?
So for clarity, should administration separate out the library?
Please, can you
Thank
do
you.
that? And so I'll speak up right now just to on the arts and culture service agreement. I like that fee for service idea. And we can set up a good fee for service. I would go for, it's a start of a year, maybe try a buck ahead, say around 20,000 to see how they do, and we'll go from there. That's just my suggestion. I'd make that motion. Second, okay. Discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Anyone opposed to that? Seeing none, it's unanimous. So we'll buck ahead. So it's around 20,000. And the other thing, can we, Sandra, is it possible to call it something else? Let's call it what it is, because it's so confusing. We have arts and culture and arts and culture. Is what it is. It's let's maybe break it out. It's like it's for place marking grants and or heritage. It's whatever you say it is here in your little footnote for arts and culture, because it sort of is, but it sort of isn't. I'm getting caught up in terminology and it's really confusing. Can we change it somehow to reflect what it really is?
If I may,
Yes, please.
our intention is that should the city be supportive, as we have just heard moments ago, that funding will be incorporated into the arts and culture line item within this operating budget. We needed to bring it forward standalone for consideration. This is a new request.
Okay, that makes better sense. Oh, Councilor Grove, sorry about that, Dave.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Hi, I woke up. No, I have one question, I guess, place to ask it. The agreement with ACCS for the 170 Goldfinch property, as I understand, includes like $1 a year or like a nominal rent. Is there some way to capture the value of what the city's in essence giving to that organization, because we're not receiving any revenue from that property, which I think was around $3,000 a month in the past, or $2,000 a month? I don't know if there's some way of capturing that or showing it because of the fact that that value is there. I think it should be. I don't want anybody to take it wrong. I think it's really a great arrangement.
Through your worship, great question, great point rather. So annually with our annual report, we do include a number of statistics. And one of the summaries that we include is that of financial support for organizations. So we'll include a summary of permissive tax exemptions as well as grant and aids.
Yeah.
And I think you've just commented on how we could expand that information to show additional support for such organizations. And so I would suggest that may be an opportunity where we could include that information.
Okay, it helps show the support that the city is indeed giving when it looks like there's nothing there in a sense.
Noted. Thank you.
Just a small thing. Thank you.
I'm just going to get out of here. Councilor Day.
Thank you. I'm close to the end. It's just this tweaked my memory banks, and because we used to have a line item fee for service for accessibility, and I don't know, we've added accessibility is important in so many areas, but I would really like to see a return to that style of investment in our awareness and feedback from people with disabilities. So I'm just wondering where in the budget, if we did return to that style of support for accessibility, what part of the budget would that fit into?
Through the chair, I would suggest within the fee for service and grant and aid operating budget, within the administration and corporate services operating budget would likely be the most appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Because one of the questions that I have heard around the table over several budgets has been that question of where would that type of investment fit best? And having, continually approved grants for originally Pacific Center Family Services for association for in the beginning they were under grants and aid and then migrated to a line item. Accessibility did the same thing and then they moved back to grant and aid with some uncertainty. I'd just like to find my way forward to just to get to a stable point where we get all the inputs that we need and where our volunteers have some security, which is where I think the arts was going here too. So just looking where and when I might be able to bring that forward.
Through the chair, I would suggest with this council's consideration of the annual grant and aid award. So previous councils have certainly offered differing direction. You know, we did have a number of years where we had what we referred to as standing grant awards. Probably 3 or 4 years ago, Council of the Day directed to move away from standing grant awards and to either consider fee-for-service arrangements or to consider annual grant awards. So I would suggest that the best fit for that would be with the upcoming consideration of the 2024 Grant and Aid Awards, which we have not scheduled yet, but will be coming in the new year. That may be this council's opportunity to direct if we wish to transition any of the city's grant recipients into a fee-for-service arrangement.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, great. So the motion on the floor is to maintain, I guess sort of maintain. Oh well. Can I get a motion, please? Okay, thanks. Look, Councilor Grove, Councilor Jordison, second. Okay, discussion. Oh, just for the 2024, it's to approve this, basically this budget, to maintain the service. It's sort of maintained because some of it's new. I guess I don't know what it is. They're moving it anyway.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that the motion is that the budget be approved, but that the library requisition be separated from.
They were gonna pull that anyway, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, discussion, other discussion, seeing none, call the question, any opposed? So it's unanimous, it's approved. Thank you very much. Motion to adjourn, please. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I'm sorry, I forgot to do this last time. A great amount of work that's gone in here. I'm really impressed. We get better and better at this every year and lots of work and it shows. It's incredibly, makes it so much easier right now. Thank you very much for it. Please, a motion to adjourn. Okay, thank you very much, Councilor Olsen and Councilor Jensen, or Councilor Day, seconds. Thank you very much, everyone. Yay. Phenomenal.